Yo, Atlas speaking, and welcome to part 3 of What If I Was Reincarnated in the Naruto universe as the Uchiha's Genjutsu Demon. Let the tale begin. Chapter 61, Bat Cave. After Yami wrote his name on the scroll, Kakashi told him that he will need to drop some blood on it as well. Yami nodded and poked his thumb with his teeth. Now smear that blood in the middle of the scroll, Kakashi said. Yami nodded and smeared the blood-covered thumb in the middle of the scroll. As soon as the blood touched the scroll, it started glowing and an air vortex was created around it. Yami looked back at Kakashi, who said normally summoning happens in a puff of smoke, but looks like this is different. All the best, brat. Don't die on me, Kakashi winked, and the air vortex sucked Yami in instantly. Kakashi sat beside the scroll and sighed. If this kid keeps doing things like this, then I am going to need therapy soon. In an unknown place, an air vortex appeared and a blue-eyed kid dropped out from it and fell on the ground. Yami stood up and dusted off his clothes. He was still feeling a little dizzy from being transported here. He looked up and saw that the sky was red in color and the clouds looked black. He looked in front and found a big cave in front of him. He looked back and there was a deep valley behind him. The odd thing was that strong winds were coming from below the valley. The valley was so deep that Yami couldn't even see the end of it. Let's try to throw a stone and hope that I can hear a sound. Hope that the strong winds don't throw the stone back at me, Yami thought as he picked up a nearby stone the size of an adult fist and dropped it in the valley. Yami saw the stone going down and the winds weren't strong enough to hinder its momentum. Yami waited for a few seconds to hear the sound of the stone dropping on the ground, but he couldn't. Looks like the speedy wind muffled the sound. For now, let's focus on the cave, Yami thought as he turned back to face the cave. The cave had a 15-foot diameter opening and it was dark as well. No kind of sound was coming from inside, which made it more creepy. Yami tested whether he is able to use chakra here or not, and lucky he had no problem with it. He decided to go all out from the start and not take any risks this time, so he took out his sword from a storage scroll and tied it to his back. He always had a scroll that had a week's ration in it. Yami also disabled his ankle weights and turned on his Sharingan. Now that his Sharingan was activated, he could see up to some distance, but not too much. He went near the walls of the cave and touched them. They were moist as if water was seeping through them. If there is a stream in the cave, then I should have heard a sound of water flowing. Looks like I will have to go in blind, Yami thought as he slowly walked inside the cave. He took out a kunai and held it tightly in his hand to fight any sudden dangers. As Yami was going ahead, he started hearing small sounds. Yami instantly recognized it as bats chirping noises. As he kept going ahead, the size of the cave increased. As he was walking, he saw two small dots of light. Are those two the exits? No, their shape keeps changing. It's not an exit but a fire lamp, Yami thought as he increased his walking speed and went near one of the lamps. The size of the light also kept increasing, and once the light, which was just small as an inch, was now as big as a human head. To be precise, it was a big torch. Ahead of the torch was a big statue. It was a statue of something Yami had seen in his past world in movies. It was a statue of a gargoyle. It had the head of a dog and the body of an oversized bat. It was made of stone, or else Yami would have thought it was the real thing. Damn, they look scary. Even Orochimaru will look like a beauty when compared to them, Yami thought, and subconsciously he touched the statue in curiosity. As soon as he touched the statue, the chirping noises coming from around him stopped instantly. Suddenly there was pin-drop silence all around Yami. I fucked up, didn't I? Yami thought, and red dots started appearing on the ceiling. They were on the ceiling behind him, exactly above him, and even ahead. It took a couple of seconds, but Yami realized that these red dots were nothing but the eyes of bats, and all these bats were alive and looking at him. The chirping noises increased and they were becoming so loud that they felt like screams to Yami. Blood started coming out of his ears. Yami decided to kill them all using a fireball, so he performed a seal and threw a fireball at the bats just a little ahead of him on the ceiling. The fireball slammed on the bats and Yami had expected a lot of bats to fall down from the ceiling burned to a crisp, but to his disappointment, nothing like that happened. The fireball blasted and a few seconds later when it dispersed Yami saw that the bats had covered their body with their wings. The wings only had some scratches, but no burns. With his Sharingan, Yami noticed that even though those wings looked like normal bat wings, they were able to take the brunt of Yami's fireball without any serious injuries. The bats closed their wings and again the red eyes continued to stare at Yami. As all of this was happening when suddenly two loud stomping noises were heard and all the bats became quiet. They all looked in the direction from where the sound came and Yami was looking there as well, and then he heard a heavy voice. A human after all these years. Come in. Chapter 62 The Big Bat. Even though the voice wasn't too loud, a sound wave came toward Yami. He tried to cover himself from the wave and even added chakra to his hands and crossed them in front of him, but the sound wave passed right through. Damn, just one sentence was able to make my internal organs vibrate in my body. It even ignored chakra. I should have practiced a few earth-type spells and made an earth wall. The one who just spoke seems to be the head of the bats here. This sound attack proves how the bodies of the previous owners were in such a bloody state. Their inside organs must have been destroyed if the head of this bat wants to kill them. Yami thought as he hadn't still decided whether to go in or not. After thinking for a few seconds, he came to the conclusion that he can't turn back now, he might as well give it a try. Yami went in and saw many torches around the walls illuminating the whole place. The place was like a big underground room and also the end of the cave. The height of this was nearly 100 feet. At the corners of these rooms were more statues of gargoyles, but these were way more big and scary looking. If there weren't any torches around the cave, then Yami wouldn't be able to even see how high the ceiling was in this cave room. There was a big pole 90 feet above the ground which was going from one side of the cave to another. In the middle of the pole, a big bat was hanging upside down. The bat had covered his entire body with his wings. This bat was the size of nearly 50 to 60 feet. At every breath of this bat, its thin wings would vibrate a little and even the air around it would shiver. For a bat, he is really big but still looks smaller than Gamabunta. Let's hope he is stronger than those toads as well as those other two sage caves. I don't even know whether bats have their sage mode. Yami thought. You are a kid, came the voice from inside those thin wings and it echoed around the cave room. Hearing this, Yami felt a little insulted, as if the bat was looking down on him just because of his age. You asshole, in my world people put you guys in soup. Yami thought but controlled his anger and said, you really intend to talk to me without showing me your face? As Yami said that, one of the wings moved and created a little gap, and between that gap Yami saw a big red eye. Just seeing that I sent shivers down Yami's spine. He felt as if the eyes were looking into his soul and trying to claw out all his secrets. He gives me a look as if I had run away with his daughter or something. What should I do now? Yami thought, but then the wings closed back and a voice came from inside. Why are you here, kid? Yami quickly responded, I want to form a summoning contract with a bat. And I wanted to ask, why are there no one in the 5 villages with bat summons? Why does no one know about your existence? Without wasting much time, Yami asked everything on his mind and he got a reply quickly as well. To form a summoning contract you just have to survive. And for the other 2 questions, you aren't qualified enough to know about it. And Brad, it isn't bats but Blood Bats clan. I hear you call us just bats again and I will turn your insides into pulp. After hearing this, Yami gulped his saliva and thought, what does he mean by just survive? He is also very prideful as a blood bat and doesn't hesitate to give out threats just like that. What do you mean by survive? Yami asked. The big blood bat said the bats around you will attack you and inject their poison into your body. The poison will change your body from the inside as well as from the outside. If you can survive through the process, then you get a summoning contract. And what if I don't? Yami asked in a confused expression. Actually, Yami already knew the answer to that, but he wanted to be sure. And the next second his worst fears came true. Then you turn into a slushy-filled bag just like those humans who came years before you, the bat said in a relaxed tone. Before Yami could even come to a decision on whether to take the test or not, the bat vibrated once again in a humming sound. Looks like he doesn't intend to give me any chance to decide. Yami thought, and all the bats around him started leading the ceiling and flew in circles around him. Slowly the number of bats began to increase, and after a few seconds, it was like a big dark shadow circling, and it had thousands of small red eyes all looking at him. They start to get closer and closer, and Yami could feel the air pressure building up around him. Suddenly one of the bats came and scratched Yami's elbow. Yami just had a shallow cut, but just as a drop of blood appeared on his skin, the bats around him went nuts and started rushing at him. The big bat said to survive them, not fight with them. Yami thought, and more bats start to attack him and pass by. This continued to happen for the next few minutes, and when they all went away, a blood-covered Yami stood there with hands folded. He was still hanging onto the last shred of his consciousness, and seeing that he had survived, a smile appeared on his face, and he was about to say something when he heard the big bat's voice again. The easier part is done, now let's see how your body uses the poison. If it fights, then you will end up like those who tried before you, and if your body accepts it, then. Chapter 63, The Blood Bat Summoner. What does he mean by the easier part is done? Didn't he just say that I will have my summoning contract done once I survive? Is this big bat playing me for a fiddle? Yami thought, and then he asked, if my body accepts it, then what? The big bat said, then your contract is signed. Yami was a little confused by all this, so he asked, why so much trouble for a summon? For a few seconds, the big bat didn't say anything, and then, in a heavy voice, he said, kid, we of the Blood Bats clan don't accept summoners, we accept successors. This poison which is now inside you will change a lot of your body composition. This gives you many perks, like your expertise in the wind element will be such that no one has ever seen. You won't just control wind chakra, but control wind itself to a certain degree. Your senses will be so good that you can become way better than a veteran sensory ninja. While the big bat was talking, Yami interrupted and said, wait a minute, you said your clan doesn't accept summoners but accepts successors. Summoners can be multiple, but successor is only one. Does it mean? Yes, the reason you never saw a bat summoner is that at a time our clan only allows one person to sign a contract. In the past few centuries, no one was able to gain the contract. In fact, none of them could make it to me. These bats that you saw on the way smell fear and self-doubt. When someone who wants us as their summons comes in this cave and fears what he sees, he is automatically ineligible to even meet me, much less become our clan's successor. Yami was horrified after listening to this, and now fear was welling up in his heart as well. He asked, I thought you killed them by your sound waves. I don't need to. The small bats of our clan can use soundwave as well. Even though it's very weak, but in a tunnel, it's amplified and their number is in thousands. I got answers to most of the questions I had in mind. The questions about the history of this clan were all brutally rejected by this big bat. I will ask him later if I get the chance. By the way, when will I know that my body has accepted the poison or is fighting against it? Yami asked. The presence of the big bat was not something he had ever experienced. Even Hiruzen seems like an ant in front of his presence. The fact that you are alive and speaking to me means that your body has accepted the poison. Now you can go back to your world, and at night when you sleep, the body changes will occur. Find the perks yourself. I have already given you the gist of the basics. Yami was relieved to hear that he was finally summoner of these bats, but then something clicked. Wait a minute. What do you buy your world? Is this place not in the same land as the other summoning lands? The big bat didn't reply, and Yami felt something behind him. He turned back and saw a wind vortex forming like the one that brought him here, and the next second Yami was thrown out of the scroll. Hidden Leaf Village Uchiha Training Ground. A silver-haired man could be seen sitting under a tree with his eyes closed. Beside him was an open scroll. This man was Kakashi, who was waiting for Yami to come back. He has been sitting there for more than an hour now. Why did this kid have to do something that no one ever has? Can't he get the most common summons like the toads, slugs, and all? If he had asked me nicely, then I would have shared the summoning contract of Pakun with him. Kakashi was thinking when the wind around him started to behave erratically. Kakashi quickly stood up and looked at the scroll with a serious expression, and suddenly the body of Yami was thrown out of it. He was completely covered in blood. All the wounds were shallow and Yami hardly felt any pain, but Kakashi panicked a little. "Yami, are you alright?" Kakashi shouted as he crouched down to pick up Yami. Yami quickly said, "Don't worry, I will be fine. All the injuries are mere scratches." This made Kakashi sigh in relief. "I wanted to prank Kakashi by making him believe I am on death's door, but I can't forget that my temperament in this world has always been the quiet type. The coldness is something that I have inherited from my past life. Go clean yourself up first and come back here in half an hour. I will eat something till that time. Because of your sudden request, I had to sit here doing nothing," Kakashi said, and Yami nodded. Yami knew that by this time Sasuke would have already gone to the academy, so Sasuke wouldn't know about his bloody appearance, and he doesn't need to. After Yami went home, he took a shower and even applied ointment to his injuries. Even if they were superficial, they are still injuries, and in a fight could work as an opening for enemies to administer poison. After that, Yami had something to snack on and then was walking back to the training ground when he heard Kakashi call him from behind. "Huh? Mr. Kakashi, I thought we were going to meet at the training ground, but what are you doing on the road to my house?" He didn't think that Kakashi had any ulterior motive or any malicious intention, but he found it odd. "I am just a clone. The real one had to go on an urgent mission, so he has given you the instruction to practice Chidori alone for the next few days, and 3 days later get the lightning scrolls from Hokage-sama. Don't push yourself to practice those if you find yourself facing a problem. Wait for me to come back from the mission." "Got it," Yami said, and Kakashi's clone burst into smoke. Chapter 64, Acute Senses. After talking with Kakashi's clone, Yami went to his training ground. He didn't try to summon bats, as the big bat had already told him that he won't be able to do anything until his body goes through certain changes. The poison in his body will make the changes when he sleeps tonight. As he reached the training ground, Yami continued his practice of Chidori and his everyday training regimen. His entire day just went by like that. At night, Yami did have dinner with Sasuke, but he didn't tell him about the bat summons. No matter the difference in their strength, Sasuke still treated Yami as his younger brother and wouldn't let him sign a summoning contract where the previous people who tried it ended up dead. And now telling Sasuke that he has a lot of poison in his body and tonight that poison will affect his body, would have invited an hour-long lecture and glare from Sasuke. At night, Yami went to sleep as usual. He didn't feel anything different for the whole night and slept normally. In the morning when he woke up, he saw that the bed sheet he had slept in was torn to shreds and he had become thinner compared to before. What the hell happened last night? Yami thought, but then again his ears started ringing and an extremely loud sound assaulted his ears, which gave him a severe headache. Yami closed his ears with his hands and sat back on the bed. Even his nose and eyes were reacting to the extreme. Yami could smell different types of things like the food at home, the smell of soil, and even flowers that were outside his house. His eyes were able to see things very brightly. Looks like my senses have enhanced to such an extent that it may be harmful to me. I need to try and gain control over it, Yami thought. Yami decided to start with his hearing as it had caused such a headache. Yami decided to shut off his ears, but it didn't help at all, so he decided to distinguish different sounds. The sounds of grass swaying, the sound of birds chirping, and even the sound of the wind blowing. Slowly he was able to take all those things in and process them differently. As he felt that this technique was working, even the headache started to subside. Yami did the same thing with his eyes and nose as well. Now he was able to differentiate everything based on its looks, smell, and sound. After almost an hour, Yami could be seen sitting on the bed covered in sweat. Due to his change in body composition, he had become extremely thin, but he didn't feel weak at all. Yami had managed to tone down his senses to manageable levels, but he knew that even though none of it was offense-based, but it will have a big boost in his overall strength. The one thing he had expected was sonar, but Yami had no such changes that could help him with sonar. Like an idiot, he tried sending sound waves and failed. It was very embarrassing for him to sit in his room and continue to click his tongue expecting something in return. The sound did return due to his acute hearing, but it didn't form any kind of image in his mind when he closed his eyes. Even though I am excited to explore my senses to their full extent, I want to eat first. I hope Sasuke doesn't see me this way. Yami thought, and he peeked out in the hall from his door. Seeing that the hall was empty, he quickly went in and made some things for himself. He kept his ears open to sense if Sasuke has woken up or had left his room. After making a ton of food, Yami went back to his room and started stuffing his mouth with it. He kept on eating till he felt that his body was regaining the lost muscle. He noticed that his complexion had gotten a little pale and his muscles were smaller than before. My muscles are as good as before, but I feel stronger and faster. Seems like devouring law hadn't compressed my muscles enough. I feel as if I have lost some of my flexibility because of this. I will need to work on it more than usual for the next week or two. Yami thought. He went and took a shower and then wore some thick clothes. The changes in his looks and complexion would have been obvious to Sasuke, so Yami didn't want to look thin just overnight. I'll wear such clothes for the next few days until I regain my muscles. I also need to find a reason to explain my pale complexion. Yami thought. He decided to experiment more, and so he left the house and went to the training ground. On the way, he let his senses do their work and was able to observe everything around him. He could see things that were even far away. As he reached the training ground, he created 3 shadow clones of himself. One clone focused on Chidori, one focused on gaining more control of the senses, and the third one tried to improve his control of the wind. Yami remembered that the big bat had said that his control over wind chakra will be replaced with control over wind. He had some idea what the big bat meant, but he needed to be sure, so he gave this task to one of his shadow clones. The original Yami wanted to try something for which he was too excited about. He stood in the middle of the ground away from other clones, and then the edges of his body began to stretch, and then, as it increased, they all split into bats and flew away. After a few seconds, several bats came from nowhere and slammed into each other, creating the figure of Yami. Yes, I did it! Chapter 65, Meeting Mako again. Yami continued to practice like this for the next 2 days. He had gotten the hang of it and even made some progress in controlling the wind around him. Though he did try to fly a few times, he couldn't control enough wind to lift his body yet. But he could make his jumps last longer, giving him more air time. He also believed that after practicing continuously for a few months, he could glide and maneuver easily in the air. It was early morning and Yami was eating breakfast. Today Sasuke left early for the academy as he wanted to visit the market and buy a few ninja tools. Today is the day I am supposed to meet Mako and get rid of the curse mark on his tongue. Luckily the mission at the Bandit Valley was wrapped up in a single night. That's why I had enough time to get fine control over devouring law. Yami thought. Hiruzen had an Umbu team assigned to watch over the Uchiha compound, but the Umbu team was called back a day after Yami came back to the village. Hiruzen was worried that this gesture of protection could be taken as a gesture of suppression by Sasuke or Yami. He couldn't openly say that he wanted to protect the 2 kids from his own friend. And to be sure, Hiruzen had set up some barriers on the border of the Uchiha compound, and only Yami, Sasuke, Kakashi, and Guy were allowed to enter without any problems. Hiruzen had no doubts about Kakashi's and Guy's loyalty, so he gave them free entry with Sasuke's permission. Sasuke was confused as to why all this security, but Hiruzen just discarded his doubt, saying that this kind of security was given by the village to every major clan. He couldn't just say that Yami and Sasuke's talents are useful tools for this village, so he is showing such good gestures. Yami entered the forest in the Uchiha compound and transformed into Danzo. Due to his bat senses, he had already sensed Mako clearly. Mako, as last time, was hiding between the 2 bushes with his ass peeking outside the bushes. Yami came and stood behind him and Mako couldn't even sense it. I feel like giving him -1,000 years of death, just like Kakashi gave Naruto during the bell test. Yami thought, but he quickly put that in the back of his mind and made a serious face. Ahem. Mako quickly looked back and was startled as he fell back to the ground. He stood up and bowed to Yami and said, Danzo-sama, when did you get behind me? I couldn't even sense you. No wonder you are the only one deserving to become the Hokage. Mako removed his mask, said some words of flattery in a single breath. I am the only one who is in contact with the real Danzo-sama. When he kills that fake Orochimaru, then I will definitely be his right-hand man. Those from my batch who surpass me will kneel in front of me and even die for me. Mako thought as he was in his own dreams. The past week he had just been imagining becoming the vice leader of Root, and then when Danzo becomes Hokage, he will take over Root and Umbu. Mako's dream to make people from the shinobi world shiver by just hearing his name would no longer remain a dream. Yami could see the little malicious smile that Mako had on his face as he thought, what is this idiot smiling about? Yami sat on a log nearby and said, Mako, first things first. Let me remove that curse mark from your tongue. Why Danzo-sama? Wasn't it you who put it on us in the first place? Mako asked. Yes, but what if Orochimaru has tinkered with it and put your lives in danger? Yami responded. He didn't want to go through the trouble of putting Mako in a Genjutsu and controlling his heartbeat rhythm like the last time. Danzo-sama truly thinks a step ahead of everyone. Here Mako said as he opened his mouth and stretched out his tongue, and there it was, cursed tongue eradication seal. At first look, it looked quite simple as it was 3 long lines and 4 short ones, but both Yami and Mako knew that it was full of complications. Now close your eyes, and even if there is some pain, endure like you're trained to do. Danzo said, which made Mako nod. He definitely looks like a dog now with his tongue out. Yami thought. Mako closed his eyes and clenched his fists. Yami activated his devouring law and stretched his hand to slightly touch the tattoo. Yami expected that it would burn like normally things burn, but the seal started rotating. Slowly the shorter lines started lining and then disappeared. I thought burning the seal would solve the problem, as that is how I practiced it, but this looks like the seal is getting reversed. I wonder why the seals on storage scrolls didn't react this way. Yami thought. After a few seconds, the entire seal disappeared and Yami deactivated the devouring law and said, open your eyes now, Mako. Mako closed his mouth and opened his eyes. His eyes widened and he had a bright smile on his face. Danzo-sama, you really removed the cursed seal. I can feel that my mind isn't restricted anymore. Mako said. Start with the report of what all happened this week. Yami asked. Mako started telling him about the things that he saw happening in the Root base. He wasn't high up in the chain of command, so he didn't have much knowledge. Though he was able to tell that Danzo was pissed because of the presence of Umbu at the Uchiha boundary, and even Hiruzen called him to his office to give him an earful. The only thing that caught Yami's attention was that Danzo had sent a Root spy to the Land of Sound to bring something. Looks like Orochimaru is sending a Christmas gift to his dear friend Danzo. Yami frowned as he was thinking. Chapter 66, Plans for Ambush. So tell me everything you know about this package mission. Yami said. Mako quickly understood that he had said something of interest, so he quickly said, Danzo-sama, the one who has been given this mission is Siro. He used to be in the same class as me and is very rude and overconfident in his abilities. He mainly focuses on poisons and Sanbon needles. He doesn't have a lot of damage, but he is definitely swift with his attacks. Yami thought for a few seconds and said, and when will this Siro come back from his mission? Mako tried to think of something. He was most probably calculating the time to travel and to make the exchange. He then said, Danzo-sama, he should be able to come by today evening. I also know the route he will take, as he always prefers to take the shortest route. That sounds great. I hope I can set up a perfect ambush. I doubt this Siro knows what he is even bringing in the package. That's how Danzo likes to do things. Yami thought, and during that time Mako was drawing the route and the nearby terrain on a scroll. After a few minutes Mako rolled the scroll and gave it to Yami and said, here Danzo-sama. This contains all the details of the shortest route. Do you need me to come there with you to help? Yami narrowed his eyes and said, don't do anything until I tell you to. Stay in the root base and let others see you there. Mako gulped his saliva and said in a flustered tone, I apologize, Lord Danzo. Leave now and meet me here next week at this time. Yami said and turned back to leave. Mako nodded and put on his mask and left the place instantly. Yami checked whether there was anyone near him. When he was sure that there was no one in the vicinity, he transformed back to Yami and went back into the Uchiha compound. He had to find a way to leave and then formulate a plan for the ambush. Hokage Building. The third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi and his most trusted advisor Shikaku Nara were reading a report. Few days ago they had already read the report of the Bandit Valley mission submitted by Guy and Kakashi. But the report in front of them gave the individual assessments of Neji, Lee, and Yami. Hiruzen started smoking his pipe and turned the chair toward Shikaku and said, "What do you think about it, Shikaku? I want to hear your assessment about them." "Hokage-sama, I haven't seen them in action in this mission, but I know very well of their temperament from the contact we have had this month. With all that I have come to a few conclusions." Shikaku responded while rolling the report he was just reading. "Tell me about Rock Lee then. He is the carbon copy of my guy," Hiruzen said. Shikaku chuckled and nodded. He said, "I agree with that. The thing he lacks most is confidence. In this mission he did the least. Yami and Neji both got chance to take care of some things alone, but Lee had to shadow Guy the whole time. Due to him being an only taijutsu Jinin, he can do nothing but fight head-on. He needs to work on befriending his team and doing things with them to increase his confidence." Hiruzen nodded and said, "We need to tell my guy to let Lee take the lead while fighting and have Neji and Yami support him for the time being. This may help him gain some confidence. As for friendship and teamwork, Lee has to figure out how to do that himself, or time will do it eventually. Now move on to Neji Hyuga." Shikaku nodded as he had a grim expression on his face. "Sai, he is a problem on all fronts, Hokage-sama. He has the pride and arrogance of the Hyugas, which makes him less friendly towards Lee. He also has the problem with his clan because of him being from the branch family, which causes him to be suppressed by the main clan. The last problem is, even though he is a prodigy among the Hyuga clan and even among children his age, in front of Yami Uchiha he seems average. The only upside he has is his Byakugan, which makes him a good censor, and Yami isn't a censor as far as Kakashi has reported. The problem of his clan can't be solved by us, as the Hyuga clan won't listen to us regarding their internal conflicts. As for his team, Neji will try his best to catch up to Yami, which means every mission he takes with Yami, Neji will give his all. I don't think he will go on the path of betrayal due to this jealousy." Hiruzen shook his head after listening to Shikaku's explanation, as even he agreed to this assessment. Hiruzen said, "Looks like we will have to leave the fate of Neji to time. Let's hope time will become his biggest teacher. Now for the one you either have the most to say." Shikaku understood that Hiruzen meant about Yami Uchiha. He chuckled and said, "Actually, Hokage-sama, I have the least to say about Yami Uchiha." Hiruzen raised his eyebrows after he heard this and waited for Shikaku to say the rest. Shikaku sat on the chair in front of Hiruzen and said, "According to Kakashi, he is proficient in ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu. He killed Kumo Jonins with his sword. He doesn't talk much, but doesn't have arrogance like Neji, only pride in his own strength, but can back it up. In his mission, not only did he single-handedly infiltrate the valley and kill a bunch of bandits, he even came back to help Neji kill, which proves he had the presence of mind to go back and support his teammate." Hiruzen smiled and said, "You said a lot about him, Shikaku, but I can see that there is something that is hounding you." Hiruzen and Shikaku have worked with each other for so many years that they can tell when the other one is thinking something. Shikaku massaged his temples and said, "The only thing I don't understand is Yami's ambition." Chapter 67, Hiruzen's Worries. Hearing this, Hiruzen frowned and said, "What do you mean by that, Shikaku? He is just a kid, and it's obvious that he hasn't decided what he wants to be. Why did you feel that odd?" Shikaku responded by saying, "That's not what I'm saying. For someone whose entire clan and family were killed by his own eldest brother, Sasuke has shown some degree of contempt and anger toward Itachi, but Yami has never done anything like that. For someone who is so strong at such a young age, Yami should have ambitions like rebuilding the Uchiha clan or becoming a strong shinobi to take revenge, but Yami never said anything like this. The thing that alarmed me the most was something that Kakashi told me in passing." "Something that Kakashi said?" "Kakashi may not be the strongest shinobi in our village, but he is one of the smartest. If he said something, which means it holds considerable merit. Hiruzen was thinking when Shikaku continued talking. He said that Yami's lightning element affinity is the strongest, but even after showing him Chidori, Yami didn't display any kind of greed to obtain it, nor did he pester him to teach that jutsu like any other kid. Even 2 days ago when Kakashi started to teach Yami Chidori, he didn't rush to learn it like someone hungry for power. Instead, he even joked about it and practiced Chidori at a stable and smooth rate. That brought me to the conclusion that Yami doesn't have high and mighty ambitions like Neji, who wants to prove himself to the main clan, or Lee, who wants to become the strongest taijutsu specialist. Because of him, even Sasuke, who used to be a bit arrogant and aloof, has started mixing with his classmates at the academy. According to the Umbu squad guarding Naruto, he and Sasuke spar after school. Shikaku thought Hiruzen would be happy listening that Yami wasn't arrogant and ambitious like his clan used to be, but Hiruzen's expression told him that he was more tense than before. "What's the matter, Hokage-sama?" Shikaku asked. Hiruzen got up from his chair and looked back at the window from his office. From here he could see the entire village and could also see the Hokage mountain. Hiruzen had the habit of looking out whenever he was thinking deeply. A sigh escaped the old Hokage's mouth as he said Inoichi's daughter Ino is head over heels for Yami, but according to what Inoichi said that day, Yami didn't even indicate anything that would tell us that he is interested in Ino. If Yami was someone who wanted to just live a peaceful life, he would have at least considered talking to her and enjoying his childhood like everyone wants to, but he didn't. Hiruzen turned back and looked at Shikaku straight in the eye, which made Shikaku flinch for a second, and said, "Shikaku, Yami is ambitious and way more than Sasuke. It's just that he is so good at hiding it that it makes me worried. He has tremendous potential, but he never bothered anyone in the academy. Not because he is humble, but because he doesn't consider them worthy of giving attention to. During the mission he didn't go back to Neji because he cares about his teammates, but because Yami's only weakness is that he isn't a censor. For him, Neji was just a tool he needed at that time, so he went there to fetch. If he truly cared about his teammate, he would have just gone back and watched Neji fight with the bandits and only interfered when Neji was in mortal danger. But instead, he killed those bandits as soon as he reached Neji's location." Shikaku's eyes widened after hearing this. What he thought was a good thing turned out to be completely opposite. "Hokage-sama, do we need to take any steps against this?" Hiruzen shook his head and said no. "As long as there isn't any reason for Yami to think of us as the enemy, we don't need to worry. He is smart enough not to show his ambitions until he reaches Kage level. Kakashi won't be back for another 4 to 5 days. Call my guy and his team tomorrow. Give them a C-rank mission. Yami didn't expose much of his strength to the Saiyan Shinobis in this mission. Tell Dai not to send his team application for this year's Chunin exam. Yami may attract too much attention there." Shikaku nodded and continued with his work. Hiruzen again turned back toward the window and thought, "I hope Danzo doesn't do anything that will make Yami an enemy of this village. As long as the threat of Itachi looms over his head, he will take his next steps carefully." Hidden Cloud Village. Reikage Building. In a big wall room there were 12 people sitting at the round table. They were all wearing dark gray and white kimono and had tan skin and blonde hair. There were a couple of old people on the table as well, but the others had refined muscles. 2 of those men had burly figures. One had a buff body and a goatee. He wore big golden bracelets on both his arms. The other one wasn't muscles as the last one, but was on the fat side. He had a French beard, sunglasses, and 2 blue-line tattoos on both his cheeks. "Yo, why do you all look so down, yo?" the man in sunglasses said. Many people sitting at the table looked at him with slight anger. Some even facepalmed themselves. The burly man with the goatee looked at him and said, "This is a serious matter." Our Jonins disappeared without a trace from the face of the earth. He then proceeded to look at the other people and bang the white table, making cracks appear on it. "Why haven't you found anything?" he roared, making many people shiver a little. This man was the 4th Reikage A. Chapter 68 Furious Reikage. "Our Reikage-sama, please calm down. I have sent 2 more teams to search for their whereabouts," one of the men sitting at the table said. Listening to this, the 4th Reikage A chuckled and said, 7 of our Jonin go missing in the Land of Wind. Do you think 2 teams will be enough? The man looked at the other people sitting at the table so that someone could support him or at least give a solution to this. Suddenly an old woman sitting at the table said, I do agree that 2 teams are not enough for this, but we can't afford to spare more jonin for this. The fact that we send 7 jonins and now 2 teams to the Land of Wind. If we send more teams, the Land of Stone might notice it. That Inoki is vicious and may find a way to turn these events for his own good. The old woman had a calm demeanor while saying this and no one interrupted her. Even the furious Reikage lowered his voice and said, Elder, what you are saying does make sense, but... said while gnashing his teeth. As the Reikage, he can't abandon the shinobis of his village. The old woman smiled and said, I am not saying that don't do anything. I think sending C and Darui will be appropriate. They are the 3rd Reikage students and can handle themselves. As the old woman said this, everyone's eyes shifted to 2 people leaning on the wall of the room. One of them was a young woman with blonde hair. She was C, a student of the previous Reikage. Beside her was a guy with white hair and a twig in his mouth. The man was dozing off a little and didn't notice that everyone was looking at him. C elbowed Darui, which made him wake up. As he woke up, he saw everyone was looking at him. He looked at C beside him and asked, was I snoring too loudly? This lazy ass will get me punished as well one day, C thought as she facepalmed herself. Darui said in a demanding tone, which made Darui's laziness vanish instantly. His demeanor, which looked normal, suddenly changed to serious. He walked near the table and looked at you and C go to the Land of Wind and find out where our 7 jonins and Shinzo. No village has taken credit for capturing or killing them, nor has anyone collected any bounty, so the chances of them being alive is high. If possible, try to keep Shinzo's cover as a traitor intact. I gave an official mission to Darui and C as he said this. We will give you the results as soon as possible, Reikage-sama, Darui and C said as they bowed and left the room. Reikage looked behind him where a woman with silver hair and dark green kimono was standing. She was Reikage's assistant Mabui. Reikage looked at her and said, Mabui, keep an eye on whether someone tries to claim their bounties. As he said this, Mabui nodded. Reikage looked ahead and said, this meeting is dismissed. Let's wait for a report from the 2 teams or Darui and C. 8 jonins don't just vanish in thin air, and Sand Village doesn't have the strength to fight against them and get rid of them so quietly. This is the main reason we sent Shinzo to the Land of Wind and the other 7 to collect information and kidnap kids with bloodline limits. Everyone started leaving the room, and after a few minutes, only the 4th Reikage and Mabui were left in the room. Stood from the round table and went to the corner of the room, which was his personal table. As he sat at the table, he massaged his temples. Seeing this, Mabui walked toward him and asked, you seem very tensed about this matter, Reikage-sama. Is something the matter? Mabui had been working as an assistant of A for quite a few years now. She has seen him go through many conflicts and face them head-on. But this is the first time he has shown such pessimism. A looked at Mabui and said, all of the 8 missing shinobis are elite jonins of our village. It was Akio's strategy to declare Shinzo as a traitor so that he can roam the shinobi world and collect information and look for opportunities to get resources and kidnap bloodline limit kids. This time Shinzo had sent a report that he had plundered 2 caravans of hidden sand goods. Akio had told him to not even think about entering the Land of Fire, and I am sure Shinzo won't disobey Akio's orders. Akio and 6 other elite jonins went to Shinzo so that they could think of a plan to create more troubles for the Land of Wind. With Akio being among them, I refuse to believe that they had some problem communicating with us or are lost. Mabui was a little shocked hearing this. Akio, even though was just an elite jonin, had immense support from other jonins. He would be the one making to make such schemes and execute them. He would directly report them to the Reikage. Mabui hesitated a little and said, Reikage-sama, then that leaves us only one conclusion. Sai the Reikage sighed as he said, yes, Akio and 7 others have been killed, and by someone who isn't a bounty hunter nor wants the recognition of killing cloud ninjas. Mabui asked with a frown on her face who could be capable of such a feat. Reikage chuckled as he said, definitely not the Hidden Sand Village. They are the weakest of all. I don't see a reason why Hidden Leaf will interfere in matters not their own. The only one that comes to mind is that bastard Inoki, but you would have rubbed it on my face after killing them. Mabui said you are forgetting something. Reikage-sama looked at her as she continued to say the Land of Wind Daimyo doesn't trust the Hidden Sand much and gives many missions to the Hidden Leaf as it's cheaper and even more efficient. What if the Wind Daimyo gave this mission to Hidden Leaf as well? Raised his eyebrows and stood up. He thought for a few seconds and said it is possible, but the chances are negligible as they don't know that Shinzo is a spy, and for a simple bandit mission old man Hiruzen won't send a team strong enough to take down shinobis like Akio, Shinzo, and others. Let's hope the ones we have sent will bring a positive report. Chapter 69, Hole in the Barrier, Uchiha Compound. 5:30 in the evening. Yami was getting ready to ambush the root shinobi Shiro that Danzo had sent to the Hidden Sound village. He was 90% sure that this package could only be from Orochimaru. No one else is worth contacting in the Hidden Sound. Due to the increased enmity between the Hidden Leaf and the Hidden Sand due to the bandit mission, the fact that Orochimaru will come and kill Hiruzen during the Chunin exams next year was mostly set in stone. Yami kept all the things he would need. He knew he can't leave the village just like that, which is why he decided to do an experiment. The plan was to go near a secluded border of the village and devoured a little part of it. According to what Yami had read in his scroll about border barriers, the alarm is only sounded if anyone attacks it with chakra to destroy one of the seals or directly enters through the barrier. Yami thought that he could devour a small part of the barrier, creating a temporary hole that will fill up itself in the next 2 to 3 minutes. Still, Yami wasn't totally dependent on it, as at 7:30 in the evening most of the merchants leave the village, so Yami planned to transform into a merchant and sneak among the crowd. According to Mako, the root shinobi Shiro sent to bring the package should come near the village by 830 to 1030. Taking more time than that could cause Shiro to give an explanation, and due to the cursed seal, he can't even lie when Danzo asks him. I hope the scroll was right about there being no alarm for anything except damaging the seal or passing through the barrier. No one thought that he can even be devoured to create a hole. Yami thought as he created 2 shadow clones. One will hide in the forest outside the Uchiha compound while the other will stay at home and do things like normal. He didn't want Sasuke to become suspicious. Seeing that Sasuke was doing academy work, Yami swiftly left his house and rushed deep in the jungle. He figured that even if there is an alarm for this, then later he can claim that someone must have tried to enter the Uchiha compound, as they know not a lot of people live here anymore. This stunt might bring attention to him and Sasuke, but it was a calculated risk. After reaching very deep inside the forest, he came to the place where the barrier was placed. The barrier didn't have any color. It just looked like a solid glass bubble. It was invisible until someone came close to it. Yami activated his devouring law and lightly touched the barrier. The barrier, which first seemed like a solid bubble, suddenly became soft like a plastic wrap and was getting sucked into Yami's hand. After a few seconds, the barrier became so thin that a hole of 5 m in diameter was created. Yami put his hand through the hole to check whether there was any sort of alarm or damage that could happen due to this. But when nothing happened, he quickly jumped to the other side through the hole. He looked back and saw that the hole had shrunk 0.5 m by this time. At this rate, under 3 minutes, the barrier will go back to a normal. Yami thought. He opened the scroll Mako had given him. This scroll contained all the info Yami needed to set an ambush. He had left the village only once, so he had to be careful and will need to find the place shown on the map. He followed the map and headed in that direction. Practice on the training ground and in actual terrain are both different. Nothing can replace real-life experience. After 20 minutes he reached the place drawn by Mako. He decided that putting Shiro under a Genjutsu would be a better option, but it was risky as well. They weren't too far from the village, and if he doesn't fall into Genjutsu right away, he may send a signal to the other root shinobis. If something like that happens, Danzo will definitely suspect a traitor in the village, especially one of the root shinobis who knew about this mission. I can't afford to make a mistake here. My only option is to kill him right away, Yami thought. He set up some traps on the branches above and also on the ground. They wouldn't kill or even hurt him. Just break his momentum and startle him. Yami dug a hole underground and hid inside while covering the hole with thick branches. The terrain was such that Zero wouldn't be able to see the ground where the hole was dug unless he is directly above it. Yami planned to attack before that happens. Now all Yami had to was lie and wait like a predator waiting for his prey. Time passed by and just like that, it was 900. Zero would be coming any second now, and this is why Yami had worn a black cloak and his sword was already unsheathed. He didn't want to waste his time doing unwanted movements. After a few seconds, Yami was able to hear some sound from the direction Mako had expected Zero to come from. Yami used his ears to get all the info about Zero's movements. Yami still wanted to be sure, so he looked out of the hole which was among the branches. He used his increased eyesight as well as his Sharingan. Now he could see things in slow motion due to his Sharingan, and he could see clearly in the dark as well as things that were far from him due to bad eyesight. He saw a man in a black cloak and a fox mask. He could be none other than Zero. Even if it isn't Zero, the man is definitely a rude shinobi due to his attire. Yami waited for him to get a little closer, and when he jumped on the branch 2 trees ahead of where Yami was hiding, Zero's feet were restricted by an invisible thing. Zero was instantly startled and he tried to maintain his balance on the branch by applying chakra to his soul to stick on the tree, and when he thought he hand stabilized, he saw something whizzing by him at an unimaginable speed. ZZZZZZT. Chapter 70, The Package. Zero didn't even realize what just happened. All he saw was a small light, and then he heard a buzzing sound as something whizzed by. He tried to look behind but felt a wave of pain all over his chest, and in the next second his eyes started closing until it was complete and utter darkness. Yami used wind chakra to cover his blade, which is why the sword slash on Zero's chest wasn't just a deep cut, but the sword went through his body, dividing it into 2 parts and killing Zero on the spot. Zero didn't even know how he died. Yami landed on a branch of a tree behind Zero. He looked down and saw Zero's body on the ground. Yami jumped down and saw that Zero's eyes were still widened because of the shock. Yami crouched and searched his body. He found a few scrolls that contained different things like weapons, food, etc. One of the scrolls was different than the others. The seal on it was something Yami had never seen before. The color of the scroll wasn't gray and white like normal storage scrolls. This one was red and white in color. This must be the scroll given by Orochimaru. I feel I can devour the seal and open the scroll, but I need to do it in the shrine. Opening something unknown in an open area would be a stupid move. Yami thought as he devoured the body. As he was devouring, he felt something in his chest just like he felt when he devoured some bodies in the Bandit Valley. As he was practicing new things in the past few days, he had totally forgotten about that energy he felt in his chest. He also had some corpses of bandits in his scroll which wouldn't rot. He had decided to keep it that way until he figures out what that energy in his chest was. This energy didn't hinder chakra in any way, but every time Yami tried to devour something, a feeling would appear that something is twisting in his chest, especially his heart. Guess tonight is the night I discover what that energy is. Yami thought as he created concentrated fire to get rid of all the blood stains. Due to the body being cut cleanly in half, there was a lot of blood. After taking care of all that, Yami erased an indication that a fight occurred here. After 20 minutes, Yami left the place and came to the same place where he had created a hole in the barrier. He again did the same thing and created a hole in the barrier and entered the village. He rushed toward the Naka shrine as he wanted to finish this as soon as possible. A couple of hours later, Danzo might feel that Zero is taking more time than he expected and he might try to investigate. As Yami reached outside the Naka shrine, Yami performed some hand seals, and the entrance to go inside the shrine appeared. He was used to all this as a couple of years ago he had come here. As he entered the shrine, the first thing he noticed was that a lot of dust had collected these past few years. I don't want to do the tedious task of cleaning this. Should I just tell Sasuke about this place's existence? Yami thought as he entered deep into the shrine. He lit a couple of torches to illuminate the place and pulled out the scroll given by Orochimaru. The scroll could contain anything, so Yami was ready with whatever he had to face now. One thing he knew for sure was that it wasn't just simple information but a package. Yami devoured the seal on top of the scroll carefully and opened it. With a puff of smoke, an arm covered in Sharingdans appeared in front of him. Yami was a little shocked seeing this, as he had already collected all the eyes of people killed by Itachi. These eyes may belong to the people who were killed by Danzo secretly during the missions or those who died during the Third Shinobi War. This means none of them are Mangekyo Sharingan. But why did he have them transplanted? Yami thought when he suddenly realized something. That bastard wants to use these so that he can perform multiple Izanagi. Here are 10 Sharingans, which means he can cheat fate and avoid his death 10 times. He doesn't have a single Mangekyo Sharingan, so he wouldn't have replaced his right eye with a Sharingan. Now by taking this arm I may have just delayed the inevitable. I don't know how many eyes Orochimaru has. Yami sighed. For now, he had stopped Danzo from getting what he wants, but he didn't know whether Orochimaru had more Hashirama cells. I remember that in the manga it was shown that Orochimaru took this arm from Shin Uchiha, who wasn't actually an Uchiha but was obsessed with them. Let's hope he doesn't have more such arms to give around. Yami thought as he sealed the arm back in the scroll and hid the scroll in a small ditch at the corner of the shrine. He covered the ditch with a stone. As soon as he saw the arm he wanted to destroy it, but doing that will do him no good. He quickly regained his rational thinking and decided to keep it until he is sure that he won't need it. After that matter was out of his mind, he left the shrine and went back to his house. He sensed that Sasuke was already in his room cleaning his sword. Yami sneaked into his room and saw that his shadow clone was just reading the scroll of Chidori that Kakashi had given him. Seeing that Yami was here, the shadow clone disappeared in a puff of smoke. Yami got the memories of the clone and realized that he had dinner with Sasuke and just some small talk and now was finding a way to improve Chidori. Yami sat on his bed in a lotus position and said, "Now let's see what this energy inside me is about." Chapter 71, Liquid Chakra. Yami sat on his bed and started meditating. He planned to discover what this energy in his heart was. As he was meditating he focused on his heart and he felt something moving in his heart. It felt as if high-pressure water twisting at high speed. What is this liquid? It's in my heart but isn't interacting with my blood or my chakra. It looks like chakra but in liquid form. Yami thought. He sensed that even though the liquid wasn't interacting with his chakra, they weren't repelling each other. They were in perfect harmony. Yami tried to divert some liquid to his own muscles, but the liquid wouldn't stop rotating. If even a single drop tries to separate from the entire tide and enter the muscles, the rest of the liquid pulls the drop back. If you can't go outward, then the only way is to compress the liquid. This devouring law is going to be the death of me. I thought it would be as simple as devour a corpse and poof, I get an increase in chakra level. Yami sighed. Yami started to compress the liquid little by little, but then he noticed that he felt some kind of numbness on his arms and legs. He still didn't stop and kept compressing. The liquid started turning into a funnel and the diameter of the entire thing started decreasing. Yami tried to find out why he was feeling the strange numbness, and after a few seconds he found out that the chakra that was in his body started to leave the muscles and move toward his heart. Why did the chakra start reacting at such a crucial stage? Looks like there is no stopping in middle. Yami thought as he gritted his teeth and continued suppressing the liquid chakra. The funnel of liquid chakra had become half his size and now it didn't even look like liquid and nor did it look like it was rotating, but Yami could feel the rotation. Though the speed of rotation had halved as well. Suddenly Yami realized something. It's forming a core. Yami wanted to stop as he knew how risky it was to form a core in a world where no one has ever even imagined doing it. But it was already too late and the chakra from his limbs had already started mixing with the liquid. At this time, if Yami had opened his eyes, then he would have seen that his legs and arms had shriveled like a dead corpse. It was way more than what had happened when bat poison changed his body composition. Yami continued to compress and the core started forming. Yami had expected it to be in a different color like he had seen in many animes, but here the core maintained the blue color. But instead of being completely blue, the core had a sparkling red light like a star in the middle. What is this star? Instead of the color of the core, does the number of stars in the core represent how strong the core is or at what level it is? Various questions were looming in Yami's mind, but this wasn't the time to think about them. The core felt encased in a glass casing, and the core inside it was trying to break the casing. The energy wasn't enough, and that's why it sucked all the chakra from my body, but it still isn't enough. I need more. Yami thought, and then his hand went inside his kimono and he took out 2 scrolls. Without opening his eyes, he opened the scrolls, and the bodies of bandits that he had stored came out. With his shriveled hand, Yami activated the devouring law and touched the corpses. As he was devouring the corpses, he saw that the energy was moving from his fingertips straight to his heart. As he was devouring, he heard a cracking sound, and he saw that the glass casing was developing cracks. The energy continued to enter the heart, and the cracks started increasing, and then suddenly a small burst happened and the casing vanished. Yami instantly felt like he had just taken his first breath after being underwater for more than he could handle. The red star in the middle of the core sparkled brightly and then dimmed. But that 1 second of sparkle was enough for a wave of pure chakra to spread throughout Yami's body. His shriveled limbs became normal. Yami opened his eyes, but he didn't feel anything different. A few seconds later, he noticed that his chakra had reached Kage level. He could feel that his body can now get back lost chakra way faster than before, which means he can fight longer. He didn't feel any difference in his physical strength or his Sharingan. He went and stood in front of the mirror and noticed that he was still a little pale. Not as much as Sai, but still Sasuke could notice it easily. This paleness caused by the bat poison didn't have any effect due to the chakra core. His eye color was blue like always, but it had a few traces of red in it. It wasn't noticeable until someone comes too close to him or looks at his eyes with the Sharingan. I should try to find out what all changes have occurred due to this core. The biggest problem that I see is what will happen when a Byakugan user looks at me with those eyes. I better go to sleep now. Tomorrow I have to go to the Hokage building to collect the scrolls. Yami thought, and he let his body fall backward on the bed. Yami's house. Next morning, as Yami was sleeping, he sensed someone in his room. He quickly woke up and saw Sasuke looking at him with a frown on his face. He rubbed his eyes to make sure this wasn't a dream, as in all these years Sasuke had never come to his room like this. "What's the matter? Why are you in here?" Yami asked, yawning. "I did try to call you many times, but you didn't reply, and it's already 7:45. You overslept almost 2 hours, which is not like you. And there is something I wanted to ask you. I did notice yesterday, but I didn't ask, why do you look pale?" Sasuke asked. Chapter 72, Hokage's Word. Yami looked at his pale hands and decided to tell Sasuke enough truth to satisfy his curiosity. He didn't want Sasuke to be worried about him. "Actually, I got bats as my summoning animal, and the paleness is just a small effect of it. But passively my eyesight and hearing have improved a little," Yami said. He kept looking at Sasuke to take a guess how much convinced he was, and after a few seconds, the frown on Sasuke's face eased a little as he said, "You should have said so. Did you do it alone? You should have taken my help." "Don't worry, big brother, I had a Jonin with me. It wasn't that hard anyway," Yami said. Hearing this, Sasuke was relieved, and he just nodded and left the room. In the room, Yami sighed and went back to sleep. He was totally exhausted because of the entire process of creating a chakra core. Yami woke up after a few hours and took a shower and had some breakfast as usual. He decided to skip his training today and head straight away toward the Hokage building, but as he exited the Uchiha compound, he saw Guy, Niji, and Lee coming toward him. Seeing Yami come toward them, Guy shouted, "Yami, it's good that you came. We were about to come and call you." Hearing this, Yami raised his eyebrows and asked, "Oh, what is it? Did we get a mission?" Guy struck a pose and said, "Yes, Yami, we have got a C-rank mission to escort a merchant group to a village. The village is in the land of fire itself, and we will be back in 3 days. And here Hokage-sama told me to give you this," Guy said as he took out 3 scrolls from his pockets and handed them to Yami. Yami took the scrolls, and they were lightning scrolls. The Jutsu Lightning Beam Jutsu C rank, Electric Detonation Technique B rank, Lightning Hound S rank. Seeing the names on the scrolls, Yami's eyes widened. He had expected Hokage to give him D and C rank jutsus and didn't expect them to be honest enough to give whichever jutsu was found on the Kumo shinobis. Yami could see that these scrolls were fresh copies as they were written on the scrolls sold in the Land of Fire, which means the real scrolls were kept by Hokage in the secret library. This was obvious and Yami had no qualms about it. As Yami was thinking about all this, Guy said, Hokage-sama told me to tell you that the C-ranked and S-ranked were obtained from the Kumo shinobis and the B-ranked was from the Hokage-sama himself to appreciate your performance. He said that this B-ranked jutsu can very well be used on shadow clones which you are good at using. Looks like the old man knew that the ones coming to the academy were shadow clones and not the real me. He even kept his word of giving me the scrolls found from the dead Kumo shinobis, Yami thought. Niji and Lee were shocked to hear that Yami had just received 3 jutsus and one of them was in rank, but they couldn't say anything as they knew Yami had contributed the most among them. Even more than Guy-sensei. So Yami, we will leave for the mission today evening and after we come back you can continue your training. Guy said. Guy-sensei, I will continue studying these scrolls slowly over time, but after we come from the mission I would like to train with you in taijutsu. I don't want to be left behind. Yami said. Hearing this made Guy really happy as he was already feeling guilty for not being able to teach anything to Yami, but now knowing that Yami wanted to increase his proficiency in taijutsu, Guy knew he could finally teach Yami something, and only then will he be deserving to be called sensei by Yami. Now I can fight with you every day, Yami. Lee said excitedly. Even Niji had made a firm resolve to fight with Yami as much as he could and defeat him, as he said, Yami, I will defeat you one day. Seeing his students so ready to fight each other and become strong, Guy couldn't help but shout this is youth. After that, Yami and others went back to their homes to prepare for the mission. At the same time, in another part of the village, someone was furious. Root base. Danzo was sitting on a chair in the middle of a big hall. The hall was heavily guarded with people dressed in black cloaks and masks. In front of Danzo stood a man who was slightly trembling. He could see the rage in Danzo's eyes. Why hasn't he come yet? Danzo asked in a cold tone. We have no report as of yet, Danzo-sama. He should have reached last night. I have sent 2 teams to search for Shiro, the masked man said. The mission he went to this time was extremely important. I had told you to send the best you have. Danzo-sama, Shiro is the best student I have taught. No one in his generation can match his speed. His strength is not something to scoff at either. I don't need assurances. I want the package Orochimaru sent. The investment in that is way too much to ignore, and I even had to do a lot of favors for that snake so that he could make and give it to me. Danzo said. Danzo-sama, what if? The man was about to say, but Danzo interrupted him by saying, I know, that snake can't be trusted and the chances of him kidnapping Shiro and experimenting on him are high. He is greedy enough to keep those Sharingans and Hashirama cells for himself. But he still needs me, so I can't completely believe that he betrayed me. There is one more possibility, Danzo-sama, the masked man said, making Danzo raise his eyebrows. The masked man said many Kumo ninjas have been spotted at the borders of the Land of Fire. Those who are proficient in lightning jutsus can match Shiro's speed. It makes sense. Those cloud ninjas have always wanted to perform experiments on different bloodline limits and dojutsu. Go and find out if any of them were spotted near the Hidden Sound Village. Danzo said as he got up and left the hall. Chapter 73, Lion in a Den. Hiruzen was satisfied to hear that even though Sakura was weak in terms of ninjutsu and taijutsu, Kakashi wasn't going to give up on her. Thinking about Sasuke, suddenly the picture of Yami came to Hiruzen's mind. He knew that Kakashi had interacted a lot with Yami, even more than Guy, so he asked Kakashi, if you don't mind me asking, how is Yami doing? Hearing Hiruzen asked about Yami, Kakashi felt a little odd, and to his side Kurenai's ears perked. Asuma simply looked at Kakashi as he never had any interaction with Yami, nor had he heard anything about him except the fact that Kurenai had once told him that Yami is good at Genjutsu. Kakashi cleared his throat and said his progress is going really good. Among the 3 techniques you gave him, he has mastered the B-rank electric detonation technique to a certain extent. He has also increased his proficiency in C-rank lightning beam jutsu and is even trying to improve it. He still hasn't touched the S-rank jutsu yet. Hearing the last part, Shikaku felt a little shocked as he said, huh? I thought he would be excited and give most of his time mastering an S-rank jutsu. Asuma and Kurenai were a little shocked to hear that Hiruzen gave Yami an S-rank technique. Even a B rank is more than what should be given, but here Hiruzen gave an S rank to an 8-year-old kid. Father isn't giving an S rank too much of a risky move. He might hurt himself seriously trying to perform such a move, as S rank jutsus take a lot of toll. Asuma said as he forgot any etiquette, and instead of calling him Hokage-sama like a professional jonin, he addressed him as father. Before Hiruzen could say anything, Shikaku turned back and looked at him while saying, Hokage-sama, you told me that this S-rank jutsu is a test for Yami, but he hasn't even started to train yet. A test? Kurenai and Asuma said together. Even Kakashi frowned listening to it. He knew that Hiruzen wasn't the kind of person who would put a kid's life in mortal danger for a mere test. Hiruzen took a deep breath and looked at all 4 jonin standing in front of him. All 4 were waiting for his answer eagerly. Hiruzen's eyes stopped at Shikaku and said the test wasn't to see how much time Yami takes to learn an S-rank jutsu, but does Yami learn it or not, and if yes, then how much time can he control himself? Say, Kakashi, did you ever ask him why he didn't learn it? Kakashi shrugged and said, I did, but he said that there is no hurry. Hiruzen chuckled and said, hee, this kid. Then Hiruzen noticed that all 4 jonins were looking at him with confused faces, so he said, if I had given the S-rank jutsu to a normal kid or even a prodigy like Neji, Sasuke, or anyone else, then they would have jumped on it and wouldn't stopped until they have performed it, even if it drains all of their chakra. Yami's chakra is already enough to perform that technique, but he didn't try to learn it because he doesn't like unwanted attention. That's why when last year I told my guy not to enroll his squad for Chunin exams, Yami didn't object at all. In fact, Neji and Rock Lee both wanted to participate. Yami's strength is deadly, but his mind is deadlier. Hiruzen's last assessment of Yami became even more stronger after this. Even Shikaku realized that what Hiruzen said did make a lot of sense, and that things were truly proceeding as Hiruzen thought. Kakashi never thought about Yami in such a way, so he said, Hokage-sama, I don't think this is any reason to worry. As long as Sasuke is in the village and safe, Yami won't act against the village. How can an 8-year-old have such a mind? Asuma asked. He thought that everyone was exaggerating Yami's strength and intelligence. Don't forget that he is an Uchiha. Hiruzen reminded, and then he looked at Shikaku and asked, where's Yami today? Shikaku quickly said, Team Guy is on a mission. They will come a week later. It's a 2-week-long bodyguarding mission. 1 week has passed already. Hiruzen nodded and said that means he will miss Sasuke's graduation. No matter, the 3 of you can lead now. After graduation, you can assess your squads. Bowing to Hiruzen, the 3 jonin instructors left the office. Outside the Hokage building, Asuma lit a cigarette while Kurenai turned back and asked Kakashi with a serious expression, what do you think about what Hokage-sama said about Yami? Kakashi thought for a few seconds and answered, to be honest, Yami and me practice ninjutsu a lot, but he never talks about anything unnecessary, and he always has a cold temperament, so it is hard to even guess what's going on in his mind. Why are you so worried? Kurenai with a little embarrassed face said, actually his Genjutsu is leagues ahead of mine, and I am equally responsible for increasing his overall strength. Asuma raised his eyebrows after hearing the first part and walked in front of Kurenai and asked, his Genjutsu is even better than you? Way better, Kurenai said as she sighed. She could also never guess what was in Yami's mind, but she never saw him as an enemy. Kakashi started to walk away from Asuma and Kurenai as he said, he is a lion sleeping in his den. If no one wakes him up, then there is nothing to worry about. Asuma looked at Kurenai's mood, which seemed a little down, and said, Kurenai, don't worry about things that have happened and that will happen. Nothing is in your hands. For now, think about how you are going to handle your squad. Kurenai looked at Asuma and said, yeah, I am not lucky like you to get a squad that can execute a combo and has their path already paid for them. Don't forget Choza's son is in your squad and he will eat away all the money you earn. Kurenai giggled, and seeing this Asuma could help but chuckle and smoke. Chapter 74, Scroll of Seals. 1 week ago, Yami and his 2 squad mates were waiting at the training ground for Might Guy. Usually Sensei comes before everyone. Where is he today? Lee asked in a concerned tone. He as usual performed some warm-up exercises with Might Guy in the morning, but now he still isn't here. Yami didn't bother to answer, and Lee and Niji didn't find that odd at all. On the other hand, Niji just shrugged. After a few minutes, Guy came back and he had a scroll in his hand. The scroll looked like a typical mission scroll, but a bit fancier. Are we going on a mission, Guy-sensei? Niji asked. Guy gave a proud smile and said, yes, we have got a 2-week-long bodyguarding mission for a renowned merchant family. And Yami Irika and Shikaku have told me that a week later is your brother Sasuke's graduation, so it is fine if you don't join in on the mission. This mission is just extra hidden security. Yami thought for a few seconds and a smile appeared on his face as he said, I don't think that's necessary, Guy-sensei. Both me and Sasuke find the ceremony a bit boring and lengthy. I don't think I will be able to sit through all that, and even Sasuke wouldn't. I will celebrate his graduation at home along with each other like we celebrated mine last year. Lee was a little shocked to hear this, while Niji expected such a reply as he thought. Yami isn't the type of guy who would go to listen to people talking for hours without any output. I guess his elder brother is the same as well. Are you sure about this, Yami? Don't you want to ask your brother first? Guy asked, to which Yami nodded and said no. He himself told me a few days ago. I hope he isn't expecting me to sit through the old man blabbering for hours with him. Yami thought. Okay, you guys go home and get ready. We will meet after lunch at the village gate. Guy said and left the training ground, followed by the 3 Genins. As Yami reached home, he saw Sasuke was cooking. He sat down at the table and said, Sasuke, when is your graduation? Sasuke looked back and said, next Monday. Why? I got a mission today. I don't know whether I will be able to come before your graduation day. Yami said, and he expected Sasuke to make a sad face or at least sigh, but what Sasuke say next shocked Yami. Thank God. Huh? Thank God? Why? Actually, I feel the graduation ceremony is too boring. I was planning to let my shadow clone go that day. I didn't know how to tell you that without making you feel like I am distancing myself from you, or I don't want you with me when I become a shinobi. Sasuke said as he brought the cooked food and kept it on the table. So are all your friends guaranteed to pass this year's exam? Yami asked. Yeah, the exam is quite easy. I am unsure of Naruto though. His overall strength has grown, but he is unable to make clones. His clones either turn out to be disfigured or just fall down once made. Sasuke said as he shrugged his shoulders. Wow, things turned out to be better than I thought. Yami thought as he started eating the food Sasuke made. After the brother finished their lunch, Sasuke was doing the dishes while Yami was in his room packing for his mission. After he finished packing, Yami created 3 clones of himself. He then had them transformed to look like civilians. He then looked at them and said, the first clone, you will roam around the village for the next week. One day before the graduation you will disperse, giving me all the information you have gained. Yami then looked at the second clone and said, from the graduation ceremony to a day before I will be coming back from the mission, I want you to listen to all the information around the village. Yami then looked at the third clone and his face became serious instantly as he said, I want you to stay here and not exert your chakra for a week. On the night of the graduation, Naruto will probably steal the Forbidden Scroll. Even though he has improved with Sasuke, due to so much chakra he can't perform clones yet. He will fail the exam and Mizuki will be there to make sure that this happens. The same night when Naruto opens the Forbidden Scroll and opens it, I want you to record every jutsu with your Sharingan. If Naruto doesn't open the scroll, then don't do anything. The risk isn't worth it, and I have no interest in learning a ton of forbidden jutsus. They all weren't sealed because they were powerful, but most of them were harmful to the user. All 3 of you remember that if things change, like Naruto passes the exam or he isn't able to steal the scroll or whatever else happens, then abort the mission right away. After listening to their individual missions, all 3 clones nodded. The first clone left the Uchiha compound while the other 2 went and hid inside the Naka shrine. Seeing that everything was set, Yami also left the house to go for his mission. I never wanted to take advantage of this scroll of seals situation, but sneaking a peek isn't much of a problem. Yami thought as he left with his team for a mission. After graduation exam, the results were just like the canon and Naruto had failed. Although Iruka and Hiruzen had decided that it was because of the 9 tails that Naruto can't control his chakra effectively. They decided to pass him, but Naruto didn't know that. Things happened just like in the canon, and Mizuki convinced Naruto to steal the scroll of seals. Chapter 75, Reading the Scroll. Yami's first clone dispersed, giving Yami the memories of what happened the first week he was out on a mission. The clone even saw Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai coming out of the Hokage building. He didn't try to listen to what they were saying, so Yami didn't know that they were talking about him. Yami's mission was going smoothly, so he had all the time in the world to view all those memories. Hiruzen called the 3 of them to tell them about the Genin teams he will be assigning to them. Yami thought. Back in the Hidden Leaf, it was night. Naruto was sneaking into the Hokage residence to steal the scroll of seals. Yami's 3rd clone hid in the forest behind the academy. From the canon, Yami remembered that this is where everything will happen. The clone was strictly warned by the original Yami not to step out of the forest and not become greedy in the slightest. Yami didn't have too many expectations from this. He had always been suspicious as to how Naruto, whose brains and strength were hardly Genin level, could steal from the most highly protected residence in the village. Yami had suspected that Hiruzen was watching the whole thing through the crystal he had, and the scroll that Naruto stole was just a dummy one that contained only the multiple shadow clone jutsu. Hiruzen must have let Mizuki get this far only to test Naruto's loyalty to the village. Yami thought when he was considering executing this plan. Hidden Leaf Village Hokage Residence. Hiruzen was standing at the entrance of his residence, and in front of him stood 8 to 10 shinobis in flak jackets, which proved that they all were at least Chunin. Hokage-sama, we have to find Naruto and get back the scroll of sealing. A Chunin said. Yes, Hokage-sama, the scroll contains many forbidden jutsus. We can't let him get that. Another Chunin said. Hiruzen looked at the people in front of him. In the back, he saw Iruka and Mizuki, who were instructors at the Konoha Academy. Hiruzen could see that Iruka was worried not about the scroll but about Naruto. On the other hand, Mizuki had a sly smile on his face. Hiruzen decided to just let things happen and see how things turn out in the end. He looked at the Chunins in front of him and ordered, "Go and find Naruto and bring him to me." The shinobis nodded their head and dispersed quickly. At this time Naruto entered the jungle behind the academy and opened the scroll. He sat down between a couple of trees and started reading the scroll. He didn't notice that behind him at some distance, 2 red eyes were glowing as well. These eyes belonged to Yami's 3rd clone, who was now reading the scroll. He had a slight frown on his face as he was reading it. After a few seconds, the red eyes calmed down and turned into normal eyes, and with a puff of smoke. Naruto looked back in a confused face and said, "Huh? I thought I heard something." Yami's clone dispersed himself as he knew what is going to happen in the future, and after reading the scroll he understood that the old man won't allow anything to happen to Naruto. In a small room, 4 people were having dinner. These 4 were Team 9 of the Hidden Leaf Village, also known as Team Guy. Lee and Guy were talking to each other while Neji and Yami were sitting quietly. After every few seconds, Neji would switch on his Byakugan and look around to make sure that no one is sneaking up on them while they are eating. He had no idea that Yami was a censor too. Yami was focused on Neji's expression when he looks at Yami with his Byakugan, as he thought Neji didn't detect anything different about me when he saw me through his Byakugan. I thought the chakra core would be detected instantly. As Yami was thinking, his body suddenly got stiff for a second but came back to normal as well. Neji noticed this and asked, "What's the matter?" This attracted Guy and Lee's attention as well. "I think I am just in need of sleep. Is it alright if I stand to guard the mansion last for tonight?" Yami asked. Neji nodded and said, "I'll stand guard the first this time, and then I will wake up Lee after a few hours. He will pass it on to Guy-sensei, and then you can do your part." Yami nodded and got up from the table and left the room. As he exited the room he felt Neji's gaze on his back, but he ignored it. He went back to his own room, and after laying down on the bed he started to see the memories of the third clone who read the clone. After half an hour, Yami opened his eyes and sat upright as he said, sure enough, this was just a trick to give Naruto the jutsu the old man wanted to, and in the process test Naruto's loyalty. Mizuki showing his true colors and Irika's heartfelt speech was just the bonus. Yami snorted. Things were just as Yami thought. This entire theft and all that happened only because the old man Hiruzen let it happen. The scroll which Naruto stole wasn't the real scroll after all. It was a scroll kept by Hiruzen containing the jutsus he wanted Naruto to have. The Umbu who keeps an eye on Naruto the whole time must have informed Hiruzen of what Mizuki told Naruto to do. The scroll which Naruto opened contained multi-shadow clone jutsu, Rasengan, adamantium chains, and some ideas to develop Rasengan into Rasen Shuriken. All these jutsus were the ones that Naruto could practice either by being an Uzumaki or because he had wind nature chakra. Yami now wished that he should have taken Guy's advice and stayed in the village peacefully rather than doing all this. Yami knew he had no scope to learn jutsu like the flying Raijin technique, as he never felt any connection to the space element. He may develop some of it if he ever attains Kamui like Obito or the Rinnegan. Chapter 76, Kurenai's Progress. Things were going pretty normal for Yami and the people around him. It had been almost a year now since Yami had graduated. In the past months, Yami and his team had been given several crank missions. Hiruzen made sure that Yami's name wasn't widespread. He had the whole team be low-key as he was afraid other villages would target them. From time to time Kakashi would come to the Uchiha training ground to practice jutsus with Yami. Kakashi helped Yami improve his Chidori. Kakashi was shocked to see that the week he left Yami's chakra was low Jonin level, but when he came Yami's chakra had reached Kage level. He asked Yami, who told him that it was the result of his summoning. Kakashi told him to show the summoning perks he gained, to which Yami only mentioned more chakra capacity and the ability to disperse into numerous bats in the middle of a fight. Seeing Yami disperse into bats reminded Kakashi of Itachi. It was a kind of nostalgia for him, but Kakashi was happy to see that even after such a tragedy Yami didn't let the darkness taint him. Hiruzen had told him to see how Sasuke was behaving, and luckily Kakashi noticed that due to Yami, Sasuke wasn't too engrossed in revenge. In the past few months, Yami had also visited Kurenai, who was now using him to increase her resistance to Genjutsu. She even sparred with Yami, who was leagues above her in terms of taijutsu. Yami did realize that now she was stronger than her canon self. Yami knew she was going to get busy this year onwards, as she will take a Genin team herself. Hokage Building. Hiruzen, who as always was sitting in his chair smoking his pipe and surrounded by heaps of paperwork. On the chair across the table, Shikaku Nara was sitting with a few papers in hand. Knock! Knock! Come in, Hiruzen said, and the door opened. Kurenai in her usual red and white tape-like dress entered the office, followed by Asuma Sarutobi and Kakashi Hatake, who both had worn regular flak jackets. All three bowed toward Hiruzen, to which the old man smiled lightly as he said, "Do you know why I have called the three of you?" Kurenai looked at Asuma, who could only shake his head in denial. Seeing that Asuma and Kurenai weren't saying anything, Kakashi took 2 steps ahead and said, "You want to assign each of us a Genin squad." Hearing this, Asuma and Kurenai both raised their eyebrows and looked at Hiruzen for confirmation. "You never cease to amaze me, Kakashi," Hiruzen said as he signaled Shikaku, who passed 3 sheets each of paper to Kurenai, Asuma, and Kakashi. The 3 of them looked through those papers, which were apparently the Genins that would be in their squad. The first one to speak was Asuma, who said, "I get Ino Shikacho combination to groom. I can work with that." Listening to this, Shikaku chuckled and said, "Shikamaru is as lazy as one can be, so you might have to work a bit harder than usual," to which Asuma smiled and nodded. The next one to speak was Kurenai, who said, "Hokage-sama Kiba and Shino are both students whose main focus is their clan's secret jutsu, and the last one is the Hyuga princess, who also performs her clan's jutsu. Do you think I will be the suitable choice to guide them?" Kurenai thought that when she would get the job as a Jonin instructor, she would get civilian Genins. Her only strong point was her Genjutsu, and she knew that now in the shinobi world, people didn't give much importance to Genjutsu. Her taijutsu was barely Jonin level a year ago, but due to her spars with Yami, her taijutsu had read mid-Jonin level. And now she was given a quad of clan Genins, and all three of them were different from each other in temperament and even in the type of fighting style, and none of them had any relation to Genjutsu. Hiruzen puffed out some smoke and said, the Genin squad that I have given focuses completely on sensors. And I believe you can handle the fiery attitude of Kiba Inuzuka, you can make the quiet Shino Aburame socialize, and you can help Hinata Hyuga overcome her self-doubt and help her open up in terms of her attitude and even her strength. She has a lot of potential, but the thing she fears is hurting someone. Listening to all this, a warm feeling arose in Kurenai's heart as she quickly bowed and said, thank you Hokage-sama for showing so much belief in me. I will make sure to be true to it and grow my Genin team to its full potential. Seeing Kurenai all fired up made Asuma smile. When he heard about Kurenai's team, even he was a little worried because the team didn't match Kurenai at all, but he knew that his father wasn't called the professor for nothing, and he would have definitely thought of something to take a decision like this. Seeing that Kakashi didn't say anything about his squad, Hiruzen took the initiative to ask, do you have any questions about your squad, Kakashi? Kakashi thought for a few seconds and said, I have seen Naruto from time to time, and due to his sparring with Sasuke in the past year, his strength is good. And to talk about Sasuke Uchiha, I visit his younger brother from time to time, so I have seen Sasuke many times. Though his temperament is a little quiet and doesn't talk unless needed, he has high potential. The weak link I see here is Sakura Haruno. She doesn't have any strong points or types of clan techniques where she can focus, and she doesn't even have the motivation to become stronger. But still, I will need to focus on her more and make her the piece of the puzzle that fits with the other two perfectly. After hearing Kakashi's response, Hiruzen said, I expect nothing less from you, Kakashi. Chapter 77, Team Kakashi, Konoha Academy. Every student of Class 1A who had passed yesterday's graduation exam was sitting in the class. Sasuke. Except for Naruto, all his classmates were present. I think Naruto should have passed. Choji said. Yeah, he had pretty good overall strength, and in spars, he ranked second in our class. Kiba nodded as he said that. Even the lazy Shikamaru, who had buried his head in the table, looked up and said he couldn't pass because of the clone technique, but I am sure Iruka-sensei will find a way out. Hearing this, the meek Hinata, who was sitting in the back, looked up with hopeful eyes as well. She was sad that Naruto couldn't pass the exam, but what Shikamaru just said gave her some hope. Ino looked at Shikamaru and asked, is that really possible? Shikamaru looked at Ino and said, last year there was a student who couldn't perform any time of ninjutsu or any other chakra-related technique. He was solely fighting on taijutsu. The academy made an exception and graduated him because just with his taijutsu he defeated many kids who could use ninjutsu. Dad told me that sometimes if the overall strength is good enough, then exceptions can be made. Hearing this, even Sakura was intrigued as she said, but I don't think anyone would want a teammate who can't use chakra. I bet that student wouldn't have gotten a good team, and his chances of becoming a Chunin and Jonin are low. But I am sure he has good chances of becoming a taijutsu instructor in the academy after a few years. Everyone nodded at that. They didn't want to be mean, but they knew that shinobis relied too much on chakra, and being unable to use chakra was like a curse that doomed you in this world. They were just being practical. Shikamaru just shrugged at that, as his father didn't tell him what happened to the student after he graduated. He also agreed that maybe what Sakura said would have been the case, and the student was just dumped into a no-name team to be forgotten. While everyone was silently thinking, Sasuke, who was looking out of the window, turned to the side facing his classmates and said, Naruto doesn't have the problem of not being able to use chakra. It is actually the opposite. Everyone looked at Sasuke, and then Sakura asked, huh? What do you mean, Sasuke? Sasuke looked at the pink-haired girl and said, I have read that the Uzumaki clan members are born with a high amount of chakra capacity, which is why he has a problem in controlling it when they are young. This means the reason Naruto can't make a clone isn't lack of chakra, but excess of it. Naruto will learn to control it as time passes, and the academy knows it, so maybe they will pass him. Many were shocked to hear what Sasuke just said. Their parents never told them anything about the Uzumaki clan because the only one alive known to them was Naruto, and all they could think about when they talk about him is the Nine-Tails Fox. Choji, who was munching on some wafers, was the first one to say that means when he grows older and learns to control his overall strength may take a big leap. Shikamaru just hummed at that, and Ino said the big leap wouldn't be an understatement. He can practically use more jutsus than normal shinobis and even last more time in a fight. Sakura was going to say something when Sasuke suddenly said, and about the student Shikamaru just talked about. Everyone's ears perked at this, and they looked at Sasuke for an answer. Even Shikamaru was interested in knowing what happened to that student. Sasuke, you know what happened to that student? Which team did he go in? Sakura asked. He is on my brother's team. His name is Rock Lee. And their sensei is a Jonin instructor who is also a taijutsu specialist. Sasuke said. Wow, that means he still has high hopes of becoming a Chunin and then a Jonin. Kiba said. The door of the classroom opened and Naruto walked in. He wore the leaf shinobi headband. Behind him was Irika, who was also the homeroom teacher of this class. Seeing Naruto, everyone was a little shocked. Choji asked, Naruto, what are you doing here? Naruto gave a big smile and pointed toward his headband and said, Irika-sensei graduated me. See, now I am a hidden leaf shinobi. Everyone thought that the academy must have made an exception for Naruto, just like Rock Lee. No one, not even Sasuke, knew that Naruto had successfully created 1,000 shadow clones the night before. Everyone settled down first. Congrats on graduating and becoming shinobis of the hidden world. Irika said, and the entire class was full of smiles and cheers. Now I will announce your 3-member squad and also the name of your Jonin instructor. Team 10 Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamichi, Shikamaru Nara. Jonin instructor Asuma Sarutobi. Team 8 Kiba Inazuka, Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga. Jonin instructor Kurina Yuhi. Team 7 Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Naruto Uzumaki. Jonin instructor Kakashi Hatake. Irika kept announcing the squads of the rest of the class as well. Sakura was excited that she and Sasuke were on the same squad, while Naruto was excited that he and Sakura were on the same squad. Now all of you wait here till your Jonin instructor comes to pick you up. Irika said, and he left the class. Haha, Sasuke, we both are in the same team. Naruto said while standing in front of Sasuke. Sasuke looked at him and snorted and then said, don't drag me down, Naruto, or else I will go ahead. Just you wait, I will surpass you. Naruto said while clenching his fists with a face full of excitement. Sakura looked at Naruto and said, stop being noisy, Naruto. She then looked at Sasuke and asked, Sasuke, I have never heard of our Jonin instructor. Do you know anything about him? Chapter 78, Team 7 Assessment. Before Sasuke could even answer Sakura's question, Ino shouted from behind. Haha, Billboard, Sakura, our Jonin instructor is Hokage-sama's son? He will train us and makes us stronger than your team. Ino wasn't a fangirl of Sasuke like in that canon. She didn't have any problem openly flaming him now. She wouldn't do it directly as she still had a crush on Yami. Sakura had a sour face when she heard that. She looked at Sasuke for some hope. Sasuke tried to ignore the two girls' antics, but he sighed and then looked at the sad Sakura and then at Ino, who had puffed her chest and was smirking. He said while raising one eyebrow, Yami practices ninjutsu with Kakashi Hatake almost 3 to 4 times a week. Do you still think he is weak? Hearing this, the smirk on Ino's face froze. She didn't know what to say. Sakura instantly stood up with a bright smile and wide eyes. She then looked at Sasuke for confirmation and then at Ino and said, what do you have to say now, Ino pig? Do you dare say that Yami practices with a weak Jonin instructor? No. Yami would never practice with someone weak. Does that mean her Jonin instructor is really strong? I can't insult Yami's intelligence to get a one-up over this forehead girl. Humph, I will get back to you for this billboard. Ino thought as she simply snorted at Sakura and turned back to sit back in her seat. Things kept going on like the canon for the next few days. Kakashi had his students take the bell test, but this time Naruto and Sasuke's teamwork was way better than the canon. Sakura truly realized how weak she was. Kakashi was also impressed by seeing Naruto and Sasuke's strength. After the bell test finished, all three Genins were sitting under a tree. They were extremely tired. They had some bruises around their body as seeing their strength Kakashi decided to go a little harder on them. Looking at the three of them, Kakashi said, "Congrats, all three of you pass. I wanted to see if you guys have good teamwork and consider me impressed. Now I will give you 3 individual assessment." Kakashi let his team first enjoy the happiness that they had passed the test and were finally a squad. Kakashi then looked at Sakura and said, "Sakura, you must have realized that you are the weakest link here. We will find out what type of fighting suits you the best and then start training in that direction." Next, he looked at Sasuke and said, "You are already close to Chunin level, but you need to be more fluid and switch between your styles quickly when the situation demands. You should know when to use Genjutsu or when to switch to Shuriken Jutsu or when to use Ninjutsu. You will gain that understanding through experience." Lastly, he looked at Naruto, who was still happy about passing the test. Kakashi said, "Naruto, you have a lot of chakra, so you need to take advantage of that. You need to increase your chakra control. You have progressed for the past years because of your spars with Sasuke, but now the progress has slowed down." Naruto stretched his fist up and said, "Yes, Kakashi-sensei, I will do it and become more powerful than Gigi." Sasuke stood up and asked, "Kakashi-sensei, can I ask something?" Kakashi raised his eyebrows and said, "Of course, Kakashi, you are my student." Sasuke hesitated a little and even looked at his teammates, making them more confused. He then looked at Kakashi and asked, "You have seen my strength now and you know my brother's strength. What can you say when you compare the two of us?" Sakura looked up at Sasuke and said, "Sasuke, why are you asking such a question? He is your younger brother and I don't think there is much difference." Sasuke looked at Sakura and was going to say something, but Kakashi said, "No, you are wrong, Sakura." This made Sakura and Sasuke both look at Kakashi. Even the empty-headed Naruto looked at Kakashi and asked, "What do you mean by that, Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi sighed and then said, "I don't know how to say this, but I have never seen your brother use his full strength, but I have seen enough to tell you that his strength is already Jonin level or even above that." Hearing this, the eyes of the three Genin widened. Sakura stuttered as she said, "But how is this possible, Kakashi-sensei? Isn't Yami just 9 years old?" Sasuke clenched his fists and looked at Kakashi as if he was suppressing his anger and said, "Sensei, are you telling me his strength is close to what Itachi had when he was 9 years old?" Kakashi shook his head sideways and said, "Yami is stronger than 9 years old Itachi, and Yami's skills are more diverse. Yami is good in Genjutsu, Kenjutsu, Ninjutsu and, of course, Taijutsu, as the village's top Taijutsu specialist is his sensei. And don't forget, you Uchihas are well known for your talent in Shuriken Jutsu, so I guess he is good at using it too. Wow, Yami really is stronger than us. I guess I will have to beat him as well," Naruto said with a smirk. Sakura could only facepalm herself after listening to the loudmouth. Sasuke also looked like he was trying to digest what Kakashi has just told him. He wasn't jealous, but he could see that first he needs to surpass his younger brother in strength, and then he can think about fighting and killing his older brother. On the other hand, Sasuke was glad that he won't have to hold himself back in training to protect his kid brother and that he can focus on his life's goal. Sasuke looked at Kakashi with newfound determination and said, "Naruto is right. I guess we just have to do missions and gain experience to increase our strength." Kakashi gave a worrying smile under the mask and said, "Sasuke, Yami's techniques aren't the ones that make him so strong." Chapter 79, Yami's Return. Kakashi's statement had all three of them confused. He knew that in the shinobi world strength is everything, then why did Kakashi say something like this? They kept looking at their sensei for an answer, and even Kakashi was lost in thought as to how he can explain it to these three kids. He cleared his throat and said, "You three need to understand that strength isn't everything. How you use it is also important. A strong shinobi can defeat tens of enemies, while a smart one can defeat hundreds of enemies. Yami's most deadly weapon is his mind and his way of thinking. Something like this can't be explained in mere words, but needs to be experienced. Sasuke, you may have fought with Yami numerous times, but you both always fought as brothers, never as enemies, which is why you never saw the mind games he plays while fighting." Kakashi said, but Naruto still had a confused expression, as all this was just complex for him to understand. Sasuke looked at the ground and said in a low voice, I did fight with him once as an enemy. Huh? You did? Kakashi asked. What happened in that fight, Sasuke? Who won? Naruto asked. Sakura bonked his head hard and said idiot Yami won, that's why Sasuke is mentioning it. Why did you have to rub it in? What happened in that fight, Sasuke? Kakashi asked. He guessed something must have happened during that fight that made Sasuke look down. Sasuke looked at his sensei and responded, usually me and Yami used to spar purely with taijutsu or kenjutsu. We never had an actual fight where we can use whatever technique we want. So once I asked him for a real fight. While we were fighting he had the upper hand and I could see he wasn't trying his best, so I pulled out my sword and tried to tackle him in close combat. He also did the same. By this time both of us had activated our Sharingan. After a couple of clashes between our sword I knew he was just deflecting my attacks and not attacking. But suddenly he vanished in front of me and the next second I saw he was behind me and his sword had pierced through my chest and I was looking down at the bloodied sword that was poking out of my chest. Sasuke said the last part in a low tone. Whatt, Sakura shouted. She never expected such an ending. Even Naruto yelled out, how can he do this to you? Kakashi's eyes widened for a second but he quickly gained his composure and said, Naruto, calm down. Let Sasuke finish first. Sasuke nodded and said I was gonna ask him why, but the next second the pain in my chest disappeared and he was casually sitting on a stone near me and his sword was in his sheath. Naruto was confused hearing that and looked at Kakashi and asked Kakashi-sensei, what is he saying? He means Yami put him in a Genjutsu. Both Sakura and Naruto said. You should have been aware of his Genjutsu, Sasuke. You shouldn't have looked in his eyes while fighting. Kakashi said. Sasuke looked up and said, I know that and I did just that. I didn't look him in the eye from the moment he activated his Sharingan. Then how did he put you in a Genjutsu? Sakura asked, and even Kakashi and Naruto had the same question. Sasuke looked at the three of them and hesitated for a second before saying, while our swords clashed I was looking at his sword and he reflected his eyes on the mirror-like surface of his sword and put me in a Genjutsu without me even realizing. Sakura and Naruto were stunned to hear that. Kakashi took a few seconds to respond as he said, I expect nothing less from your brother. Now you understand what I mean by his mind is the deadliest weapon he has? All three Genins nodded at that. The example given by Sasuke proved how Yami can get to you without even knowing. It also taught them that one needs to make and change their strategies mid-fight and even find the appropriate time to execute their plans. Kakashi knew that Naruto and Sakura are simple-minded and to some extent, even Sasuke is one of them. Now stop thinking so much. You guys have just graduated yesterday. Taking all of it in together will feel a burden, so take it slowly over time and continue practicing. Maybe one day you can surpass him. Kakashi said, and hearing that, Naruto, who was in deep thought, instantly looked up with wide eyes and said, Are you telling the truth, Kakashi-sensei? We can also become strong? Of course, Naruto, everyone can. Now let's go and train. Kakashi said, and the whole Team 7 started their routine practice. Few days later. At the gates of Konoha, 4 people were walking. These were Team 9 of the Hidden Leaf, also known as Team Guy. As they entered the gate they saw that the village had the normal hustle-bustle going on. At last, we are back in the village after another successful mission. Rock Lee said while throwing his hands up in the air. The mission they performed this time was hella boring and they didn't face any enemies. Yes, Lee, another success for Team Guy, my guy shouted. Sensei, if there isn't anything else, can we go home? Yami asked. Guy looked at Yami and said, I don't see why not. I will submit the report to Hokage-sama. There is practically nothing to add to it. You guys go take a day off. We will meet the day after tomorrow for training. Yami and Neji both nodded and left for their respective houses. Yami had received the report of the past few days from his second clone and there wasn't anything much to report. The clone only told him that Naruto stealing the scroll was covered up and Team 7 had gone for a mission. As Yami entered his house he saw a small paper on the table. He picked it up and it read, Yami, I am going on my first mission to the land of waves. I will be back in a few days. Chapter 80, Meeting Hanabi. Yami chuckled when he read the note and said, this mission of yours is going to be anything but easy. You and Naruto are stronger than the canon, so I hope you won't lose to Haku. Yami took a bath and went to sleep. Due to the overly excited Might Guy and Lee, he and Niji couldn't take many rests. This didn't tire Yami physically, but he was bored. In the past days, he tried many times to control the wind around him enough to give him flight, but to no avail. In the past year, there weren't any major fights that Yami took part in. Hiruzen didn't even let any member of Team Dai get their names on the bingo book. But that didn't stop Yami from making any progress. The biggest progress for him was that he could now use those ankle weights at full capacity. Deactivating them and finding out his full speed was tempting for Yami, but he had some self-control. In the evening after waking up, Yami ate some food and left the house. He went to the market to get some shurikens. Yami never gave much thought to using ninja tools like shuriken, kunai, and even explosive tags. As he was moving through the shops, he saw that a new weapon and tool shop had opened up. Yami entered the shop and saw different types of tools and scrolls and tags. As he went further inside the shop, he saw a kunai kept on the counter. As he went closer, he saw that the kunai had a pink ribbon grip and the loop of the kunai had a small toy attached to it. I have seen this kunai somewhere in the anime. I don't remember where though. Yami thought when he suddenly heard a voice from behind him. Hey, that's my kunai. Yami turned back and saw that it was none other than Hanabi Hyuga. She wore a yellow kimono and had a mature demeanor. Yami remembered that he had met a few years ago and she seemed very different from back then. Must be the burden of being the patriarch's daughter and replacing Hinata as the clan heir. Yami thought. Hanabi looked at Yami and then she suddenly said, you are Yami Uchiha, aren't you? Yami didn't have any change in his expression as he said, yes I am. You are in Big Brother Niji's team. Dad and Grandpa were talking about you, she said. She wanted to continue, but the door of the shop opened again and two people walked in. Yami's looked ahead and saw these two people were none other than Kurenai and Hinata. As soon as Hinata saw Hanabi, she walked up to her and said, Hanabi, I was searching for you everywhere. Father agreed to you coming without a guard because I promised him that me and Kurenai-sensei will be with you at all times. What are you doing here anyways? Hanabi turned around and glanced at Yami once before picking up the kunai from the counter. She then showed the kunai to Hinata and said, look big sister Hinata, my kunai looks so beautiful. Kurenai chuckled hearing this while Hinata just gave a worrying smile and said, Hanabi, you can't treat ninja tools as toys. Hanabi pouted hearing this but continued to fiddle with the toy attached to the kunai. Kurenai looked at Yami and said, Yami, I didn't expect to see you here. Are you here to buy something? Hinata and Hanabi also looked at Yami. Yami gave a small smile as he looked at Kurenai and said, Miss Kurenai, I was here to buy some ninja tools. Especially kunais. I can use wind chakra on my sword, but I am unable to wind chakra on throwing tools like shuriken and kunais. Maybe I can hint her into convincing Asuma into showing me how to do it. If I ask Hiruzen, then he won't deny my request, but I don't want to owe that old man. Yami thought. Oh, you just wanted to refill your ninja tools arsenal? Kurenai asked. Hinata was looking at Kurenai as she didn't know how her sensei knew Sasuke's little brother. This was her first time meeting Yami. Sasuke would never talk about him unless necessary, and she had heard her father and grandpa talk about him being in Niji's team and also him being stronger than Niji. Actually, I am having problems using wind chakra on throwing tools, so I thought I should come here and put some new ones. Yami said, pointing to the kunais hanging in the shop. This kid is now trying to master shuriken jutsu. He never stops training, does he? Asuma is the best person to teach him about it. He won't say no if I ask, and maybe I can use Yami to stimulate and encourage my team. Shino and Hinata have a big problem of motivation. Kurenai thought. She turned to Yami and said, what if I can help you with it? Kurenai asked, folding her hands. I hope whatever she wants from me isn't too time-consuming. Yami thought. What do you have in mind, Miss Kurenai. Spar with my squad for today and I can get a friend of mine to teach you. Yami acted like he was thinking and said that sounds like a fair deal. Tell me where to meet you. I will come there in half an hour after I finish my shopping. Kurenai nodded and said come to the forest at the back of my house. I train my squad there. After saying that Kurenai left followed by Hinata and Hanabi. Hanabi turned back a couple of times to look at Yami. He is the same age as me but his height and looks are the same age as big brother Niji. And his blue eyes look so good. Hanabi thought as she left the tool shop. Ugh, sparring with those weaklings is going to be boring. I also can't just knock them down in one hit or else Kurenai will have me fight them again till the day ends. But if I can learn how to apply wind chakra to tools then it's worth it. I can use the same method to add lightning chakra increasing its speed and penetration ability making kunais and senbon needles perfect assassination tools. Yami thought as he continued browsing the ninja tools. Chapter 81, Asuma's Deal. Konoha Market. Kurenai along with Hinata and Hanabi was walking through the market. Hinata had held Hanabi's hand so she couldn't just run away like last time. From time to time Hinata would glance at Kurenai as if she wanted to ask something but she was hesitating. Kurenai noticed that and said, "What is it, Hinata? If you have something to ask then go ahead. Don't be shy." Hinata looked at Kurenai and said, Kurenai-sensei, how do you know Sasuke's younger brother? Kurenai smiled and said, you were hesitating to ask such a simple question? Yami has a good talent for Genjutsu so I helped him in training. Hanabi frowned a little after hearing that and said, but I heard that he beat big brother Niji in taijutsu. Kurenai shook her head and said Hanabi dojutsus like the Sharingan and Byakugan have a real strong resistance to Genjutsu so he must have not used it against Niji. And don't forget the Uchihas have their own taijutsu style. It's more focused on speed and strength rather than Hyuga clan's taijutsu which depends on deflecting attacks and countering with the softness of the palm. After walking for a few minutes Hinata noticed that they were going in a different direction from where they normally practice. Hinata asked Kurenai-sensei, where are we going? Isn't your house in that direction? She asked while pointing her finger in a different direction. The friend of mine who can teach Yami what he wants lives in this direction. I am sure he will be at his house at this time. He is too lazy to start his practice so early in the day. His squad has your classmates Shikamaru, Inoichi, and Choji. Hearing this Hinata thought for a few seconds and said, I remember in class Ino said that her sensei was Hokage-sama's son. That's right Hinata. He is Hokage-sama's son but don't be nervous he is very friendly. Kurenai said with a slight blush. As they reached Asuma's house they saw Ino was lying down on the lawn, Choji was sitting outside the house eating chips and beside him, Shikamaru and Asuma were playing shogi. Hey, Asuma. Kurenai called out attracting everyone's attention. Even Ino turned her head to look at who called her sensei. Seeing Hinata with the women Ino got up. Asuma also looked away from the shogi board and stood up walking toward Kurenai. Kurenai, what are you doing here? I thought you would be training your squad. Asuma said. I have a favor to ask of you. After that I will go train my squad, Kurenai responded. By this time Ino came and stood in front of Hinata and said, Hey Hinata, fancy seeing you here. Is she your Jonin instructor? Hinata looked a little nervous and said why yes. Ino then looked at Hanabi and asked who is she? She seems to be from the same clan as yours. Before Hinata could reply Hanabi introduced herself. I am Hanabi Hyuga. Her younger sister. Seeing that the shy Hinata's younger sister wasn't the shy type did shock Ino but she quickly put it in the back of her mind and stretched her hand and said I am Ino Yamanaka. Hinata never mentioned she had a younger sister. Shikamaru and Choji also walked and stood beside Asuma and were listening to the talks of the grown-ups. So Kurenai, what favor do you want from me? As long as it isn't too outrageous I can give it a try. Asuma said. Shikamaru raised his eyebrows after hearing what his lazy Jonin instructor just said. I want you to teach Yami Uchiha how to use wind chakra on throwable ninja tools. Asuma wasn't surprised to hear this from Kurenai as he knew that she taught Yami Genjutsu and even had a favorable opinion of him. Did Yami ask you to ask this favor of me? Asuma asked. Though they haven't met each other, Asuma had heard a lot of praise about Yami and his squad from his father. He expected that if Yami wanted help from Asuma, then he should have asked it himself rather than going through Kurenai. Actually, no. I just met him at the tool shop. While we were talking, he mentioned that he isn't able to use wind chakra on his ninja tools, so I gave him the offer that a friend of mine will teach him, and in return, he has to spar with my squad for today. I thought Yami was using Kurenai to get something from me. But it turns out she was using my skill to get Yami to spar with her team. I have no problem with doing favors to Kurenai, and I ain't famous enough that a kid who never met me knows that I can apply wind chakra to tools. As he was thinking, Ino suddenly jumped beside him and looked at Kurenai. Did you just say Yami Uchiha? Seeing this, Kurenai was surprised at first, and even Asuma was, but then they remembered Hiruzen had told them that Inoichi Yamanaka's daughter had a crush on Yami. Yes, Ino, we were just talking about Yami Uchiha, Kurenai said. Asuma chuckled after seeing that Sundara Ino suddenly become a cute kitty. He looked at Kurenai and said, I have no problem in teaching, but I also want something in return. Hearing this, Kurenai blushed slightly, thinking about what Asuma wanted from her, but then Asuma said, I will also come with you guys so that even my students can spar with Yami. Kurenai's blush quickly faded after listening to this, and she narrowed her eyes as she looked at Asuma. Did I just fuck up? Asuma thought as he realized his mistake. He could have asked her for dinner but settled for a spar. He was mentally cursing himself, but he couldn't change anything now as his students were standing right beside him. Kurenai shook her head and looked at the sad Asuma in front of her. She couldn't help but giggle and said, Come with your squad now. Yami will come to the forest behind my house within 15 to 20 minutes. Chapter 82, 3v1's Unfair. After a few minutes, Kurenai along with Hinata and Hanabi, while Asuma with his squad left Asuma's house. They were going toward the forest behind Kurenai's noise when Yami is supposed to come. While walking, Hanabi and Ino were talking, and through this Hanabi realized that Ino is really head over heels for Yami, and even though they don't meet often, she tries her best to find him and talk with him. I don't know why I feel something different when I see those blue eyes of his. No. No. No, Hanabi, you are the next heir of the Hyuga clan. You can't afford to get into things like these. Hanabi convinced herself. 15 minutes later, everyone reached the forest, and Kurenai saw Shino sitting on the stump of a tree while Kiba and Akamaru were laying down under a big tree. Hearing the footsteps, Akamaru looked up, and seeing this, even Kiba stood up. Kurenai-sensei, Hinata, were what took you guys so long? Then he noticed Shikamaru and his squad along with Asuma walk with them as well. Kurenai didn't waste much time and explained Kiba and Shino everything. Shino didn't say anything, but Kiba was a little angry. Sensei, why do you think we need guidance from someone who is even younger than us? He can't defeat us just because he is Sasuke's younger brother. Kurenai shook her head and said, Kiba, him being Sasuke's brother has nothing to do with this. Where is the kid, Kurenai? I thought you said he will be here in 20 minutes. Asuma said while puffing out smoke. Hanabi and Hinata sat under the shade of a few trees, and after a few seconds, even Choji and Ino joined them. What a drag. I thought I will play shogi for a few hours then go home and sleep, but Asuma-sensei dragged me all over here. Shikamaru thought. He will be here any minute now. Kurenai said, and suddenly a blur appeared beside her, and it was Yami, who had just body flickered. Yami looked around and saw Asuma along with his team. He had guessed something like this would happen, but he still looked at Kurenai as if asking for an explanation. Kurenai understood what Yami wanted to ask and said, This is the friend I was talking about, Asuma Sarutobi, she said while pointing to Asuma. Yami looked at Asuma, who was still trying to understand the kid. He had heard a lot about his strength and his mind, but now when he looks at the kid in person, Asuma couldn't figure out anything. For him, everything about the kid is a mystery. No wonder Ino has a crush on him. Girls fawn over guys who behave mysteriously, Asuma thought. He then stretched his hand toward Yami and said, I am Asuma Sarutobi. Kurenai told me you need help to apply wind chakra to throwable tools. I can help you with that, but in return I want you to spar with my students as well. Yami didn't have any change in expression as he shook Asuma's hand and nodded. He was about to say something when Ino ran and stood beside him. Hi Yami, it's good to see you. I will also spar with you today. Yami looked at Ino and said, do your best. He then looked at Kurenai and said, shall we get this started? Kurenai looked at Asuma, who just nodded. She then looked back at Yami and said, how do you want to do it? 1v1? Yami frowned a little after hearing that. Kurenai was confused at that, but Asuma understood as he said, Kurenai, you are hurting the kid's pride. Telling him to 1v1 like that. Kid, do you want to go solo against 3 students? The newly made Genins felt this was a bit of an insult. Even if they were newly graduated, they were still heirs of the village clans and had their own pride. Fighting 3v1 against a kid 3 years younger than them will definitely hurt their pride. They all gathered around Kurenai and Asuma. The only one openly displaying anger towards this decision was Kiba as he said, Sensei, how can we fight with him 3v1? This is unfair. I can fight him alone and defeat him. Kurenai was about to reprimand Kiba for his statement, but Yami said in a cold tone, Miss Kurenai, I agree with him. Huh? Was the reaction of everyone around him. Did I overestimate this kid? Asuma thought. But then the next sentence Yami said made everyone widen their eyes, including Hanabi and the lazy Shikamaru. He is right about 3v1 being unfair. Let's do it 6v1 or else the fight will finish before it starts. What? Kurenai said. Asuma puffed out smoke and said, Kid, are you sure about this? Yeah, let's get this over with. Yami said in a casual tone as he removed the sword from his back and put it in a scroll. The fight was just starting and Yami kept his weapon in a scroll. Was an odd scene for Kurenai, so she asked Yami, why did you store away your sword? Because none of them use a sword. Yami shrugged and walked a little away from the 2 squads. Kurenai and Asuma understood that Yami wanted to start the fight, so they both started leaving with their kids, but suddenly Hanabi shouted, can I participate as well? She wanted to see how strong the person who defeated the genius of her clan is. I have no problem if Miss Kurenai allows. Yami said. Hanabi looked at Kurenai, who nodded with a smile. As they were ready to fight, Kiba and Akamaru were already growling and Kiba even had sharp nails coming from his hands. Yami didn't react to the provocation and asked, tell me your name one by one and the type of jutsu you use. Everyone was a bit confused at that, but they decided to tell him as it wasn't much of a secret. Huh, why would he ask that? Kurenai asked as she was standing at the side. Asuma, who was leaning on a tree, chuckled and said, hee hee, this kid. If I am not wrong, then I have truly underestimated him, because now what he is going to do to these 7 kids is going to be brutal for their minds. Chapter 83, Beatdown Part 1. The 6 Genins and Hanabi looked at each other and decided that they should tell what is their fighting style. Shikamaru had his doubts as to why Yami asked them this, but he couldn't come to a conclusion in a short time. Hinata Hyuga Taijutsu Gentle Fist, Hanabi Hyuga Gentle Fist, as well Shino Aburame Bug Jutsu and Shuriken Jutsu. Kiba Inazuka Human Beast Jutsu. Shikamaru Nara in release, he decided to be as vague as possible. He was counting on the fact that he could catch Yami off guard as who focuses on their shadow while normally fighting. I want to try whether I can devour his shadow jutsu once it takes hold of me like Momoshiki absorbed it, but this isn't the right place nor the right time for it. Yami thought. Choji understood what Shikamaru did, and he also decided to be vague as he said Choji Akimichi Yang release and Taijutsu. Ino Yamanaka mind-related techniques and Taijutsu. Yami nodded and then looked at everyone and nodded, let's get started. Kiba ran toward Yami as soon as he heard this. The others wanted to stop this hothead but knew he wouldn't listen, so Hinata and Hanabi rushed behind Kiba to support him. For legs technique, Kiba shouted and went on all fours with Akamaru on his head. His hands and legs became like a beast's claw without any fur, and he grew canine teeth as well. He pounced at Yami, who still had a cold expression. Is he not gonna dodge? Ino asked. No time to discuss that, Ino. If he dodges, use mind transfer on him so that I can connect his shadow. Shikamaru said, to which Ino nodded. As Kiba pounced, Yami just took his left step back, which made him face sideways at the other kids, and Kiba was in the air in front of him. From the side of his eye, he saw that Ino was making a triangle with her hands and he was straight in her sight. Yami kicked Kiba on the side of his ribs, but not before taking Akamaru off his head. The kick wasn't hard enough to crack the ribs, but Kiba flew sideways. Akamaru was in the hands of Yami and he quickly held it up to his face, bringing him in the middle of his and Ino's line of sight. "No!" Shikamaru shouted, but it was too late. Ino had transferred her consciousness into Akamaru. Her original body was falling down, but Choji caught her just in time. Ino opened her eyes and saw she was in the body of the tiny dog Akamaru. She moved her head sideways and she could see Yami's blue eyes and the smirk on his face. Her eyes widened as she felt horrified, but she knew she was totally helpless. Akamaru was still small, that it could not do any damage to Yami no matter how much it tried. Yami looked ahead and saw Hinata and Hanabi run up to him. He threw Akamaru, Ino, at Hinata, but not with force. He didn't want to hurt Akamaru or Hinata by this move, but only to distract Hinata into catching Akamaru, which would slow her momentum. And just as he thought, Hinata instantly stopped and caught the white puppy. "Hey Akamaru, are you alright?" Hinata asked in a worried tone. "Hinata, that's Ino, not Akamaru." Choji shouted, making Hinata look back and see the unconscious Ino in his arms. He looked again at Akamaru, Ino, who nodded while giving a sad wimp. Ino decided to cancel the mind transfer jutsu. While all this was going on, Hanabi clashed with Yami. Her height was more than Hinata's, but still a bit shorter than Yami's. She knew that Yami was an Uchiha, so she focused on his hands rather than his eyes and face. "I need to close at least a couple of his chakra points so that the rest of the 6 can take him down," Hanabi thought, and she activated her Byakugan and lunged with a barrage of gentle fist attack. Yami continued to evade her attack with minimal effort, which made her more aggressive. He then saw that from his right, Kiba was getting up from the ground, and even Ino was trying to get up even though she held her head. Yami, instead of dodging, hit her arm from the side, breaking Hanabi's momentum, and then quickly held her wrist and pulled her closer. He then bent down on one knee and elbowed her in the stomach, making all the air in her body escape through her mouth. She was shocked to see that her barrage of attacks was countered so easily and Yami had managed to hit her so quickly. She wanted to go a few steps back and then start attacking again, but she noticed that Yami held her arm with both his arms. She understood what he wanted to do. Yami rotated her in the air and threw her in Kiba's direction. By now Kiba had again started to run to Yami, but now he saw Hanabi flying straight in his face. He wanted to dodge it, but he was on his 4s and running at speed. The next second Hanabi crashed into Kiba, making him fall to the ground again. Yami looked ahead and saw bugs were swarming out of Shino's jacket, and Hinata, who was nearest to Yami, now had a nervous expression, but she had taken the fighting stance. Yami rushed toward Hinata, which made her more nervous, but just before they could even come in the range of a taijutsu fight, Yami jumped above her head. "Huh?" Hinata said with a confused expression on her face. She didn't understand why Yami didn't fight with her or knock her out with one hit. Yami didn't jump straight, but sideways, which now made him, Shino, and Shikamaru come in a straight line. Unlike Shino, Shikamaru noticed this, but he didn't know why Yami did it like that, or did he even do it on purpose. Chapter 84, Beatdown Part 2. Shino knew that he would become the next target of Yami's beatdown, so he sent his swarm of bugs to attack Yami. Yami just shook his head as this was a dumb move. He quickly made some hand signs and threw a fireball from his mouth. This fireball wasn't too large nor too hot, but it was lengthy. Shino dodged the fireball by jumping to the side. The fireball passed his position and went even further, almost reaching Shikamaru. "Looks like he wanted to attack me with the fireball, but he couldn't realize his own limit," Shikamaru thought, but the next second he saw Yami himself coming at him through the fireball. Shikamaru took a step back in shock, as he never expected Yami to run through his own jutsu. He then saw that due to having a fire behind him, Yami's shadow was now long and was even close to touching his own shadow. It was the right move not to tell him about my shadow jutsu. Now I can entangle him, Shikamaru thought and smirked. As Yami was getting close to Shikamaru, he suddenly saw that the shadow under him started to curl around his legs and torso. Due to the thick smoke after the fireball, Shino couldn't see what was happening, but the others on the training ground had smiles on their faces. I expect nothing less from Shikamaru, Choji shouted. Well done, Shikamaru, Hinata complimented. Ha, at last you caught him, Kiba said as he was panting. His face was bruised by getting a girl thrown at his face. Even Hanabi had a smile on her face, seeing that the lack of information got Yami caught off guard. Kurenai and Asuma entered the training ground and stood beside Kiba and Hanabi. The kid did well, taking out so many Genins. Kurenai said, yeah, I am thoroughly impressed by this. But in the end, he still lost. Asuma said proudly. Yami, do you accept defeat? Shikamaru asked loudly. Everyone wanted to hear the words yes from Yami's mouth, but then they heard a voice from the other side of the smoke. Do you accept defeat? Huh, everyone turned their heads to see through the smoke, including Asuma and Kurenai, but then a strong breeze came from inside the smoke and all the smoke vanished. Everyone saw Yami standing with hands in his pockets and an unconscious Shino lying beside him. What? Kiba shouted. He more than anyone wanted to hear Yami admit defeat, but now they had a different answer. Even Asuma was a little shocked to see this. Kurenai had a smile on her face. How could I forget that this kid isn't just strong but also smart and cunning? Yami then looked at Shikamaru and said, do you accept defeat, Shikamaru? The clone you have captured is a shadow clone of mine with an exceptional ability. Shikamaru frowned as he heard this and looked at the clone. He saw the clone smirk and the eyes of the clone glow blue and white. Asuma saw this and quickly shouted, Shikamaru, get back. Shikamaru listened to his sensei and undid the shadow procession jutsu and fled back. The shining eyes of the clone calmed down back to normal, and then, in a puff of smoke, it disappeared. He then looked at Asuma and asked, what happened, sensei? Everyone, including Kurenai, didn't know why Asuma shouted like that. He didn't think anything so dangerous was going to happen. They all looked at Asuma for an explanation. Asuma sighed, seeing that his student was unharmed. He then looked at everyone around him, including the slightly smirking Yami, and said it was the electric detonation technique, which means the shadow clone would have exploded into a blast of electricity and your body would be obliterated. This was a friendly spar, or else Yami wouldn't have even asked you about surrender and you would have died the moment you used shadow procession on his shadow clone. Everyone had an expression of horror as they heard this. They then looked at Yami and gulped their saliva. They couldn't imagine that Yami was hiding such a dangerous move in plain sight. Shikamaru looked at Yami and asked, you knew about my shadow procession techniques? Yami shrugged and said, of course. They are the Nara clan jutsus. I knew that while fighting eventually you might find a loophole and attack me, so I created a loophole for myself, making you believe that I didn't know anything about your techniques. Shikamaru was impressed by this and he nodded. Choji hadn't practiced much of his clan jutsus to actually make a difference, so all he could do in this fight was take care of Ino when she uses mind transfer. Impressive, Yami. Here, take this scroll, contains what you want. If you need help practicing you can come to me in the morning, Asuma said as he pulled out a scroll from his flak jacket. Yami picked up the unconscious Shino and gave him to Hinata, who carefully placed him under a tree and started splashing water on his face. Yami took the scroll and nodded. Kurenai was about to say something, but Yami suddenly looked back. Everyone looked in that direction but didn't see anyone, which confused them. Then after 2 seconds, they saw an Umbu jump out of the jungle. As he exited the jungle he saw everyone staring at him. He hesitated for a second and then looked at Yami and said, Hokage-sama has called Team Guy in his office. I informed the rest of your teammates and even your sensei, but you were nowhere to be found. The Umbu said, and he disappeared into the forest again. Looks like you have a mission, and an urgent one, Kurenai said. I came from a 2-week-long mission this morning, Yami said. Which means the reason he is calling your squad is important. Let's go, I will also come with you. Kurenai, you coming? Asuma said. No, I will take care of the kids' injuries. They are superficial, but they are even more discouraged seeing the strength of a 9-year-old. Kurenai replied. You know we are right here, right Kurenai-sensei? Kiba said with an ugly expression on his face. Chapter 85, Backup Team. Kiba then looked at Yami and said, Yami, next time I will defeat you. Ino looked at Kiba and said, stop dreaming, Kiba. You will never be able to defeat Yami. Seeing this, Hanabi was confused on whose side is this girl. Shikamaru walked a few steps ahead and said, Yami, we individually may not be able to defeat you, but if we all fight with you again in the future, then our goal would be to defeat you. Everyone agreed with Shikamaru's statement and nodded, including Hanabi. Kurenai and Asuma were impressed as they saw their lazy Genins make such a determined statement. As long as you guys don't slack off and continue practicing, you can defeat him. Kurenai added a little encouragement of herself in the mix to boost the confidence of the kids. Yami shrugged and then looked at everyone, and at the end his eyes landed on Shikamaru as he said, Shikamaru, did you forget I am an Uchiha? Next time make it your goal to make me use my Sharingan. That would be a good start. He winked as he said that. Everyone realized at that moment that the thing that made the Uchiha clan above others was their Sharingan, and Yami didn't even use them once in the entire fight. They all felt that Yami had pushed them in a bottomless hole. They realized how weak they really were. The one most affected was Kiba, as he had full confidence of handling strong missions, and now seeing Yami's power he understood why the village makes Genins only take D and C rank missions. Yami then looked at Asuma and said, let's get going. Hidden Leaf Village Hokage Building. Like always, Hiruzen was sitting in his office and Shikaku was talking to someone outside the door. Yes, let's send them in directly. Shikaku said to the person on the other side of the door and closed the door. He then looked at Hiruzen and said, Hokage-sama, Team Guy will be here any minute now. I have sent an Umbu squad to call them. Hiruzen looked up from the paper he was reading and nodded. He then asked, what is the status of the Kumo ninjas at the border of Land of Wind and Land of Fire? Shikaku shrugged and said Danzo said that he wanted to handle those Kumo ninjas. The final report I got was that 5 were assassinated by the root and 3 were nowhere to be found. They most likely fled. Hiruzen raised his eyebrows and asked, what did the Kumo ninjas do to get Danzo so pissed off? Hokage-sama, if I may ask, why are you planning to send Team Guy? There are squads available to provide Team Kakashi support. They just came back from the mission this morning. Shikaku asked. You already know my wish to make Team Guy the face of Konoha, but I feel that they haven't interacted much with the other shinobis. Not even of their own academy batch. I want Team Guy to have good relations with other teams as well. And about this mission, the backup isn't too necessary. According to Kakashi's report, Zabuza is dead and a shinobi from the Hidden Mist took him away. Hiruzen said, and then Shikaku understood the rest as he said, you are just sending a backup team so that if someone with the resources to hire one of the 7 swordsmen of the Mist attacks Team Kakashi, the backup team can be of help. The chances of Team Kakashi actually needing help is low. Just then the door opened and Team Guy entered, followed by Asuma. Seeing Asuma, Hiruzen frowned and asked, what is the matter, Asuma? Hiruzen asked as a father, not as the Hokage. Seeing his father with a worried face, Asuma chuckled and said, it's nothing. When Umbu came to call Yami, I was there with him. I wondered what could be so urgent, and that's why I came with him here. Hiruzen sighed hearing that and said, it's not urgent but of considerable importance, which is why an Umbu was sent. He then looked at Team Guy and explained to them the report and his decision to send them as a backup. Guy and Lee wanted to leave right away after listening to this, but Hiruzen assured them that Zabuza has been taken care of and they are only being sent if the real perpetrator sends someone else to attack. Team Guy, you can leave within the next 3 hours. No need to hurry. As Kakashi said, they plan to stay until the bridge is completed. So the one behind these attacks will likely launch a big attack when the bridge is about to be completed so that they can overwhelm Team Kakashi. Hiruzen said as he looked at everyone from Team Guy. Yami and his teammates nodded and then left with Guy. As they left the office, Hiruzen looked at Asuma and said, what did Yami want with you? Asuma didn't dive deep into the matter and only said that Yami wanted to learn to apply wind chakra on his kunai, and Kurenai referred him to Asuma. Uchiha clan has their own shurikenjutsu techniques, and if he learns to apply wind chakra to it, then that would be a considerable boost. By the way, did you notice his expressions while I was reading the report? Asuma shrugged and said, I did see him, but I didn't find anything odd about it. He had the same cold eyes and indifferent expression. Shikaku looked at Asuma and said that should be the expression of a shinobi taking a mission, but that shouldn't be the expression of a 9-year-old who just found out that his elder brother fought with a strong criminal. The 7 swordsmen of the mist all are almost S-rank shinobis. Hiruzen nodded at Shikaku's conclusion, but Asuma waved his hand and said, I think you guys are thinking too much into this. I think Yami just has a good poker face. Let's hope you are right, Asuma. Let's hope you are right. Hiruzen muttered. Chapter 86, Tazuna and Family. Outside a small house in the Land of Waves, Kakashi team along with 3 other people were sitting. These 3 people were Tazuna the bridge builder, Tsunami his daughter, and Inari who is Tsunami's son and Tazuna's grandson. Seeing Kakashi look in the direction of the hidden leaf, Inari moved closer to Sasuke and Naruto and asked, why is your sensei on alert? I thought you guys already killed the guy who attacked Grandpa. In a single day after having a fight with Naruto, Inari started understanding why they do what they do. At first he hated the words, heroes or savior, because he lost his own father, but after Kakashi told him Naruto's and Sasuke's backstory, he felt that these two had a crueler fate than him. Due to Sasuke's mild attitude compared to the canon, he was an approachable person. Naruto laid back on the grass and with one fist in the air. Inari as shinobi should always be alert. Sakura, who was listening to all this, looked to the side and asked Tsunami, big sister Tsunami, how many days will it take to complete the bridge? I think 3 to 4 more days would be enough by the rate the work is progressing, but... She lowered her voice as she came to the last part. But what? Sakura asked, and instead of Tsunami, Sasuke answered, the people are getting more and more scared and the workforce is reducing day by day. Tazuna sighed and said, you are right. Everyone is worried for their family's life, so I can't even force them. That Gato is truly insidious to threaten the family members of the people working with me. Naruto quickly got up and said, don't worry, old man Tazuna. We have promised to keep you safe, so we will help you complete it faster. Kakashi couldn't help but shake his head. This kid is just piling things on and on. First was to even go through this mission, and now to help him complete it. Luckily the kid has enough chakra to create a few hundred clones, which will truly be helpful for building the bridge. Huh? Is that an orange dog with a ninja headband? Sakura said, attracting everyone's attention. So he is finally here. Kakashi said. You know what that is, Kakashi-sensei? Sasuke asked. That's Pakin, one of my summoning animals. I had sent a report of what conspired to the village. Seems like he is back with a reply. Kakashi said, going ahead to get the reply from Pakin. Inari hesitated and asked, what will you guys do if the report says that because Grandpa gave the wrong information, this mission is cancelled? His mother told him that the villagers couldn't afford a higher mission fee, so they stated it as an escort mission. If the reply truly says that the mission is cancelled, then Tazuna would be helpless, and then the one behind all this will attack his grandfather and mother. Naruto bonked Inari's head hard and shouted, I promised you to protect the old man, then I will keep the promise. That's my ninja way. Even though Inari had teary eyes because of the bonk he had just received, he was happy after listening to Naruto's reply. He looked at Sasuke and Sakura for their reaction, but both of them just had a smile on their face, practically telling him that they agree with Naruto. After a few seconds, Kakashi came back with a scroll in his hands. He was reading the scroll and then he rolled it back and stored it in his pocket. Kakashi-sensei, what did Hokage-sama say in the report? Sakura asked in a concerned tone. Hokage-sama is sending a Genin squad for our backup. Kakashi said. Everyone's mood lightened after hearing that. Even Inari was happy and hugged his mom. Instead of facing abandonment, they were getting more support. So Kakashi-sensei, did the report say which squad will be sent? Sakura asked. Kakashi glanced at Sasuke and said, it's Team Guy. They did come from a mission, but they are the strongest Genin squad with the strength of Chunins, so Hokage-sama could only send them. Sasuke quickly got up as he heard this, and this behavior was noticed by everyone. For a few seconds, no one said anything. Sasuke looked at Kakashi and said, "Kakashi-sensei, I am going to the jungle for training. I will be back by dinner time," he said and walked away. The mood was serious and Tazuna and his family were confused by all this. Sakura and Naruto followed Sasuke as well. They wanted to help Sasuke become as strong as he can. They had started to see that Sasuke was comparing himself to his brother in every aspect. They knew that Sasuke isn't narrow-minded enough to be jealous of his own little brother, but what Sasuke currently seeks is strength. Enough strength to complete his goal. Outside the house, the confused Tazuna family turned to Kakashi as he was the only one left. The first to ask was Tazuna himself. What just happened? Why did the three of them get serious when they heard the team name? Tsunami asked, "Does Sasuke have some kind of enmity with that team?" Kakashi shook his head and said no, they don't have enmity with them, but one of the members of that squad is Sasuke's younger brother Yami. This sentence got the Tazuna family more confused. This time Inari asked, "But shouldn't big brother Sasuke be happy that his brother is coming? Why did he go off training?" Kakashi had no option but to say because Yami is way stronger than Sasuke and also ruthless. When he comes tomorrow you will understand. He is way different from Sasuke in every way. Huh? Big sister Sakura told me that big bro Sasuke was the topper of his class. Inari said. Kakashi responded yes, he was the topper of his class. But Yami skipped a few years and directly got admission in a class ahead of Sasuke. He was at the top of the class and he could even defeat his seniors with just a simple look. Even I am not entirely sure of defeating him in a one-on-one battle. The only way I can defeat him is because of my years of experience and fully grown body which will last longer. Tazuna was thoroughly horrified when he heard all this. He had seen Kakashi fight and now saying that even he couldn't guarantee a win would be unimaginable. Tsunami looked at her son who had his jaws dropped and then at Kakashi and asked, "Are you saying that someone just a year older than my Inari is capable of not just fighting you but even defeating you?" Chapter 87, The Forgetful Kakashi. While Kakashi was having the discussion with Tazuna and his family, Yami and the rest of Team Guy were traveling to the Land of Waves. While traveling, Yami noticed that Guy wasn't in the jolly mood like always. He knew that Might Guy's father died at the hands of the 7 mist swordsmen but not before killing 4 of them. "Guy-sensei, are you alright?" Yami asked. The entire team stopped instantly because Yami is the last person they expected to say something like this. Niji was so shocked that he thought this Yami was not the real one. "Why did you ask that, Yami?" Guy asked while he forced a smile. "Because I saw your expression change when we got the mission and I also know that your father died protecting your squad from the 7 mist swordsmen," Yami said. Niji and Lee didn't know this fact so they were shocked and looked at Guy. "Guy-sensei, is that true?" Lee asked. Guy embarrassedly scratched his head and said it is indeed true. And from that day I developed a bit of hatred to take personal revenge against them. Lee wanted to console his sensei whereas Niji didn't know how to react. Yami looked at Guy and said, "Your father didn't die in vain, sensei, he saved the life of you and your team. I have also heard that he died after killing 4 of the swordsmen." Lee got excited as he heard that and said, "What? Sensei's father killed 4 mist swordsmen single-handedly?" Niji was surprised to hear this. At first, he thought that Guy's father must have just played bait or distraction, but taking 4 lives of A or S-ranked swordsmen was not something he could scoff at. Guy told a few more things about his father. After a few hours, they started their journey again. This time Guy's mood was way better. He was laughing and talking with Lee and Niji. Yami has always started to ignore him again. The Land of Waves wasn't too far, so after taking 2 breaks and running for 8 to 10 hours, the team reached Tazuna's village. Yami knew that the climate would be cold here, so he wore a thick black and gray colored hoodie with thick fur near the collar area which covered his mouth and some part of his nose. If anyone would see him now, they would only see the black-gray hoodie, the purple sword on the back, and Yami's cold blue eyes. Yami wasn't sure whether Zabuza will attack them on the way or not, so he decided to carry the sword instead of putting it in a storage scroll. I guess Zabuza is already too injured by his fight with Kakashi, so he won't be active for a few days. Yami thought. Guy-sensei, where should we find them? The mission never specified the address of the bridge builder. It's already close to dinner time. Should we ask around? Lee asked. Niji quickly stopped Lee and said no. If any of them is working for the ones who want to kill the bridge builder, then it would be a big problem. How could Kakashi forget to mention the address? He should have at least stationed someone to receive us when we come. Looks like Hokage-sama's response didn't specify when we will come. Yami thought. Lee, what Niji says is right. I think it's better if we split up. Guy suggested. Guy-sensei, you and Lee go together. I will use my bat summons to search and Niji can use his Byakugan. I will keep one bat over Niji and one over Lee and Sensei so that whoever finds the house and relay it through me. Yami suggested. What Yami says does make sense. Me and Lee don't have many resources to relay even if we find Kakashi and his squad. Guy thought. He then looked at Yami and Niji and said, both of you go in opposite directions so that you can cover more area. Guy said, and the kids nodded. Yami turned into number bats and after a few low screeching sounds they all dispersed. Creepy. Niji thought as he looked at the bats. He then turned toward the other direction and activated his Byakugan. Yami started to see through numerous bats at the same time. He wasn't trying to find Tazuna's house, but he wanted to find Haku and Zabuza, who were probably in the jungle. He hadn't decided whether to kill them or not. He was pondering over if he can keep them alive, and if yes, then what use could they be to him. While all this was going on, everyone was sitting inside Tazuna's house. Sasuke and Naruto came back from training half an hour ago. Sakura came before them and started helping Tsunami make dinner. She knew that Team Guy will reach by dinner time, so she didn't want the entire burden of making such a large quantity of food to be on Tsunami alone. Inari was sitting with Naruto, who was now telling him about his feats in the academy. Sasuke was reading a scroll, and in between, he would say things that would embarrass Naruto, which would make Inari laugh. Tazuna was happy seeing his family like this. He looked at Kakashi and asked, when will the other team be arriving? Do they know my house? Kakashi thought for a few seconds and said they will reach any minute now. As for your house, I think I wrote the address. I don't remember quite well. Tazuna was going to advise him to go out and wait, but then they heard the sound of footsteps from the outside. Sasuke held his sheathed sword and even Naruto got up. Sakura came out of the kitchen while Tsunami stood behind Inari. Shoo! Kakashi signaled them to stay quiet and not move. Attacking the house at night was a very sound strategy as per Kakashi, as they don't just have to fight but also protect the family. Kakashi slowly opened the door while everyone else was tense. The next second he opened the door fully and said, "You must be Niji Hyuga. If you guys think that an experienced shinobi like Kakashi won't forget this, then you are wrong. He is definitely the type to do such blunders." Chapter 88, Luxury of Innocence. As soon as Kakashi said that, everyone in the room breathed a sigh of relief. They also saw Konoha headband, which made them more sure that he wasn't an enemy. Niji, who was standing outside, nodded and said the report didn't mention the address, so we had to split up. Guess I did forget to write the address. Kakashi thought. I apologize for that blunder. Where are the other three? How will you tell them we are here? Kakashi asked, but Niji just pointed upwards. Everyone looked up, including Tazuna and his family. Is that a bat? Sakura asked. Before Kakashi or Niji could say anything, Sasuke responded, yes it is. But it is also my brother Yami's summoning animal. Niji glanced at Sasuke once he heard Yami was his brother. Niji may have been an egotistical idiot in the canon because he was the strongest among his peers both in the academy and in his squad, but this time Yami had suppressed Niji on both grounds. Niji wasn't foolish enough to say anything careless to Sasuke. On the other side of the land, Yami was still finding Haku and Zabuza when he got the signal that Niji had found his brother's squad. He instructed the bat looming above the green spandex duo to come down near their face and make noise indicating them to follow the bats. The bat did just as he instructed and lowered his altitude and screeched in front of my guy. Lee, this bat is making noises. Looks like Yami or Niji found the house. Let's follow the bat. Guy said, and Lee nodded. After a few seconds, Guy and Lee reached Tazuna's house. As soon as Guy saw Kakashi, he shouted, "Kakashi, my eternal rival, I am here to save you." Niji could only turn his face the other way in embarrassment while Lee's attention was captivated by Sakura. Kakashi shook his head and sighed as he said, "Guy, your squad is sent here for backup. In case they attack again." "Where is Yami?" Naruto asked innocently. Everyone looked around when Niji said, "There he is." They saw bats coming in from different directions, and then all those bats came down beside Niji. There were tens or maybe even more than 100 bats, and they formed the figure of Yami in a black and gray hoodie. That was so cool. Inari shouted. Yami, whose only blue cold eyes were visible, turned and looked at Inari, who felt a chill through his spine. He quickly became quiet. Even Tsunami was a bit nervous seeing this. Kakashi had already told them that Yami is different from his brother. Tsunami was going to reprimand Inari and apologize to Yami for interrupting their talks, but Yami said, "I know, and that's why I chose it." Everyone was shocked to hear Yami say this. This was too out of character for him. Even his own teammates felt that this was just an illusion. Tazuna smiled seeing this and broke the awkward atmosphere and said, "Come in, 4 of you. It's dinner time. It must be cold outside." Yami along with others stepped in and removed his sword. He was about to keep it down, but then Sasuke stretched his hand and said, "Give it to me. I will keep it with my sword." Yami nodded and handed him the sword. He then proceeded to remove his hoodie, exposing the full-sleeve white t-shirt and his face. After changing into some comfortable clothes, everyone sat around the table to eat dinner. While Tsunami and Sakura were serving food, Kakashi decided to tease Yami a bit. "Yami, I didn't know you could speak so nicely to a kid." Many wanted to say this but couldn't. The only ones closer to Yami that can say this without any consequence were Kakashi and Sasuke. "I agree with Mr. Kakashi on this, Yami," Lee said, and even Niji nodded slightly. "I felt amused by his perspective, not by his words." Yami replied. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked. Such talks were not something Naruto could ever understand. But even the others didn't understand what Yami actually meant. "Mr. Kakashi, what would you think would have happened if an 8-year-old from our village had seen the scene Inari just saw?" Yami asked. "Depends, I guess." "Why do you ask?" Kakashi asked. Yami chuckled and said, "We are from a ninja village, Mr. Kakashi. When children or anyone in our village sees this, they try to sense danger or directly run. We see everything as a threat, and that's what small children also see. The change in perspective is because Inari had the luxury to have his innocence intact even till this age, when children from our village lost it way before than this." Silence. Everyone, including the Tazuna family, understood what Yami just said. It was a simple truth, and no one could deny that. It was the simple truth of the cruel shinobi world. Such thoughts at such a young age. I guess the strength these kids of the hidden village have does come at a cost. Tazuna thought. Yami, the way you think truly makes me feel I am stupid. Kakashi sighed. Haha, Kakashi, don't forget that he is my disciple, Guy said in a proud tone. Guy, Lee, and Tazuna continued talking while Lee tried to strike a conversation with Sakura. Yami looked at Sasuke and asked, "Did you fight the swordsman as well?" Sasuke shook his head and said no. "We protected Tazuna while Kakashi-sensei fought with the swordsman." Such talks continued for more than half an hour till everyone finished their dinners. "So now that we have a backup, what are we going to do?" Naruto asked with hope filled in his eyes. Kakashi pinched Naruto's ears and said the mission is still the same. To protect Tazuna till the bridge is built. If they attack again, then Team Guy will help us defeat them. Kakashi wanted his squad to lead this mission from start to end. Not a good idea, Mr. Kakashi, Yami said, making everyone turn toward him. Chapter 89, Overconfident Naruto. May I ask why? Kakashi asked. Even the others sitting at the table felt that this plan was simple and effective. I don't know how they thought the plan to guard the bridge till it's built will be a success. Yami thought. As Old Man Tazuna said that all this is done by Gato, who is a corrupt businessman and has the funds to hire an A-rank swordsman, then what's stopping him from attacking this family after the bridge is built and we all have left? He can even blow up the bridge with some explosives or simply kill Tazuna and use the bridge to transport his own goods for profit. Yami said. Everyone realized this, but they knew this was way more than what they were assigned to do. We won't be safe even after the bridge is built, Grandpa? Inari looked at Tazuna, who had a grim expression. Naruto looked at Kakashi and asked, Sensei, there must be something we can do, right? Kakashi nodded while thinking and said what Yami said does make sense. Gato may hire someone else to attack Tazuna again. Guy patted his chest and said, Kakashi, leave the information gathering and containment of Gato to me and my team. Niji glanced at Sasuke and then at Kakashi while saying Dai-sensei is right. One team can focus on the protection of Old Man Tazuna and his family while the other team can take care of Gato. Sasuke noticed the challenging gaze of Niji, but he didn't say anything. Kakashi was going to respond to Niji's plan, but Naruto interrupted him. We also want to fight the bad guys. Niji was getting annoyed by Naruto, so he grit his teeth and said, Naruto, you. Niji, a calm voice of Yami, stopped Niji from saying anything further. Niji looked at Yami and kept quiet. Niji was someone who only respected strength, and Yami was more than worthy, so he had stopped speaking against it unless he strongly feels like it. Seeing Niji suddenly quiet down, Kakashi and others raised their eyebrows. Just a second ago they thought it was going to be a pain to cool Niji down, but a single word from Yami was enough, and it didn't even contain a threatening tone. Naruto looked at Yami and said, Do you agree with me, Yami? Sakura wanted to bonk Naruto for interfering in things he didn't understand, but she couldn't do that in front of so many people. Yami chuckled and said, Let's do as you say then. Team Guy will protect Old Man Tazuna and his family, and Team Kakashi will gather information and contain Gato and whatever he is doing. Naruto had a smile on his face listening to this, while Sasuke, Kakashi, and Niji were frowning. They know that things with Yami are never this simple. Let's talk about this tomorrow. Now Team Guy, go and sleep. You all must be tired of traveling for so many hours. Kakashi said while quickly changing the topic and avoiding making a decision. He wanted to think why Yami agreed so easily, and he already had a few theories. Guy along with his team left the hall and went into the empty room in the back to sleep. Yami's only interest in this mission was to find Zabuza and Haku and make their eyes and ears out in the shinobi world. There was silence in the hall after they all left. Kakashi and Sasuke were looking at each other with serious expressions, while Naruto was happy imagining beating up a couple of goons. Tsunami sent Inari to go to sleep as well. Sakura, who was nervous about fighting a gang of bad guys in her first mission, asked, Sensei, do we really have to fight many goons in the coming days? Naruto smirked and said, Sakura, don't worry, I will protect you. Sakura really wanted to hit him, but Sasuke beat her to it and bonked Naruto hard. Ouch. Sasuke, what was that for? Naruto asked, rubbing his head. Kakashi-sensei, Yami would never agree to something like this so easily, Sasuke said. Kakashi sighed and said he knows this squad isn't ready to perform such a mission yet, so he agreed. He was just making fun of you, Naruto. Sakura sighed in relief, hearing that they don't actually have to fight. Naruto frowned and said, I guess I will have to defeat Yami tomorrow and prove that I can do the mission. Did I hit him too hard? Sasuke asked, looking at Naruto as if he had lost his mind. Let's leave that discussion for tomorrow. Sakura, go with Tsunami and help her sort out the kitchen. Tazuna, you can go and sleep while we guard the house tonight, taking turns, Kakashi said as he got up. Tazuna thanked Kakashi for his help and left. Sasuke and Naruto argued for a few minutes and went outside the house to guard it for a few hours. While Tsunami and Sakura were cleaning the kitchen, Tsunami asked Kakashi was right. Yami is really different from Sasuke. Although both talk less and show no enmity toward each other, no one from Yami's team said a word when he let Naruto have his way. Sakura nodded and said from what Kakashi-sensei told us in the evening about his friend Might Guy, he and Lee are simple guys. I just hope Naruto doesn't say anything to Yami tomorrow to embarrass himself. Kakashi and his squad took turns the whole night guarding the house. They didn't spot anyone trying to attack them or even snoop around the village for information on Tazuna. The next morning Kakashi heard sounds of someone practicing. He exited his room and saw that the noise had woken up Sakura and Inari as well. They came out of the house and saw Naruto fighting with his own clones. Looks like he is taking his training more seriously now that another team is here. Kakashi thought as he smiled behind the mask. Naruto, why are you practicing here this early in the morning? Inari asked. Naruto stopped fighting and looked at Inari and Sakura and said, I am warming up to challenge Yami. Oh crap, Kakashi and Sakura cursed in their minds. Chapter 90, Spar with Naruto. Naruto, why do you want to create a mess everywhere you go? Sakura shouted. Kakashi patted Sakura's shoulder and said, Sakura, it's useless making him understand. Let's get the day started. At least he is training rather than sleeping till late like yesterday morning. Sakura cursed a few more times and left. Inari was sitting on the porch outside the back door. He started cheering for Naruto. You can do it, big bro Naruto. You can win. This gave the loudmouth more confidence. After a few hours, everyone was sitting at the table having breakfast. It was 7 in the morning and Tazuna had to leave for building the bridge in an hour or so. This is really good. Me and Sasuke hardly eat home-cooked meals and prefer to eat at a restaurant or just instant ramen. Yami thought when Sasuke, who was sitting beside him, asked, I'm going to go to the jungle nearby to train. You want to come? Yami shrugged and said sure. Guy looked at Yami and then at Tazuna while saying, I and Lee are going to help Tazuna build the bridge faster. Lee also beamed up and said, yes Guy-sensei, together we will complete the bridge in no time. Tsunami and Inari giggled at that while old man Tazuna laughed and said, I like the enthusiasm shown by the both of you, but remember that work done in haste won't be perfect. Guy and Lee nodded at that. Inari, who was sitting beside his mother, looked at her and asked, Mom, can we go to the jungle to see them train? Tsunami chuckled and said, if you promise to exercise yourself, to which the Inari just nodded. After breakfast, Guy, Lee, and Tazuna left to build the bridge and the rest started going inside the nearby jungle. After a while, they came near an open area with a small lake on the side. Inari and Sakura picked many flowers on the way. Yami also took out the scroll Asuma gave him and started reading it. It was pretty simple to understand and the problem Yami was facing was also tackled in it. As they were about to split and practice on their own, Naruto walked toward Yami. Niji, who was walking beside Yami, noticed it and showed an annoyed expression. Sakura and Kakashi knew what was going to happen. Yami looked up and saw Naruto with a serious expression on his face. What is this idiot going to do now? Niji and Sasuke thought. Yami, I want to spar with you, Naruto said while pointing at Yami. Sure, Yami said. This made everyone have a shocked expression, as from yesterday Yami was agreeing to Naruto like anything. I thought he would say no and Naruto would keep pestering, but now he said yes. What should I do? I can't have Naruto go through what Sasuke went through, Kakashi thought as he looked intently at Yami. Naruto had already gotten through many bad things since he was born, so he didn't want Yami to add anything to the mix. Inari was also happy to see Naruto, who he looked up to, fight, while Tsunami was curious about all this as she had never seen an actual shinobi fight before. Everyone started to get on one side of the open ground to give them ample space to fight. Kakashi and Sasuke walked toward Yami. The first one to ask was Sasuke. Yami, why would you accept it? You are petty enough to teach him a lesson or something. Yami smiled at his brother and said it's because Naruto isn't the type of person who listens to reason. Don't worry, I won't take it too far. Seeing that his brother hasn't taken Naruto seriously made Sasuke sigh. He wasn't a detached person like the canon. Having a brother kept his soft side alive, and after Yami's graduation, Naruto was the closest thing he had to a friend. They bickered every day, but that's how their friendship grew, and Sasuke had seen how the villagers treat Naruto. Kakashi looked at Naruto and then at Yami and said, "Yami, end it fast. I don't want him to get overconfident. Ever since he has learned to make shadow clones, he has become too dependent on them." Yami nodded and Sasuke and Kakashi left the open area to join the spectators. Inari looked to the side at Sakura and asked, "Who do you think will win, big sister Sakura?" Sakura looked at Inari, who wanted Naruto to win, and said, "In terms of combat strength, Naruto was second in our class and now his ninjutsu is also improving. I have only heard about Yami being strong but never witnessed his strength myself. Yami didn't bring his sword as he only came here to train shuriken jutsu with wind chakra." Kakashi became the referee of the match. Naruto and Yami were standing on two ends of the open area. "Kakashi-sensei told me that Sasuke and his brother used Genjutsu with the help of Sharingan. Yami doesn't seem to have activated it yet, which means he is underestimating me. I should take advantage of this early on," Naruto thought. Even after thinking all this, he used his one and only known strategy. "Shadow Clone Jutsu," Naruto shouted, creating 5 clones of himself. They all looked at Yami and hoped that Yami doesn't know which one is the real one. Yami, on the other hand, had a bored expression as due to his hearing he could clearly hear the heartbeat of the real Naruto. All the other ones were just made of chakra, so they didn't have a heartbeat. Inari had an odd expression seeing 6 Narutos in front of him. Neji and others knew how hard it was to create so many shadow clones. "Yami, aren't you going to make a move?" a Naruto asked. He was a clone, but he acted as if he was the original. "Fine, I'll make a move," Yami shrugged and suddenly flickered out. He appeared behind the second Naruto from the right side and gave a chop on his shoulder, making the Naruto lose consciousness and fall to the ground. All the other Narutos disappeared in a puff of smoke. They didn't even realize how they dispersed. The match ended before Kakashi could even say start. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 4. Peace.